Chapter 386. Sang Hetong never thought that Leng Shiqi's cultivation would soar, and he even dared to attack him. In Sang Hetong's view, Leng Shiqi's strike was comparable to a Gang Spirit Realm Master's strike. It was indeed amazing. Such a strike was nothing to Sang Hetong in the past, but now he was under Tu Deng's control and had no room to fight back. This was dangerous. Even though he was in the unity of heaven and men realm, he had not specially tempered his body. If he was hit by the strike, he would definitely die. The blood veins on Sang Hetong's body suddenly increased, and he looked like a man of blood. His body split open, and dozens of goo worms of different colors and shapes rushed out. Originally, with Sang Hetong's goo arts, he could control goo worms with a thought. He could also use goo worms to perform all sorts of strange methods. But now he could only release these goo worms to help him block the saber beam. The moment the goo worms appeared, Leng Shiqi's blade light also arrived. With an extremely soft sound, all of the goo worms were cut into two halves. Fortunately, these goo worms were carefully cultivated by Sang Hetong, and they helped him block the blade. But his heart was bleeding. These goo worms were not meant to be used like this. However, at this moment, a sharp aura quietly invaded his mind, causing his mental strength to fluctuate. The power was not strong and it did not hurt his mind, but it shook his mind. Seeing this, Tu Deng's eyes were suddenly filled with splendor. He clearly felt that Leng Shiqi's strike had the feeling of void destruction divine blade. The reason why Leng Shiqi stopped absorbing the power of the blood cocoon and turned to attack Sang Hetong was that he found that although his cultivation was soaring, the spiritual strength in his body was very heterogeneous. Even his 5th level of spirit aperture realm was a little unstable. He knew that one reason was that his cultivation had soared too fast, and the other reason was that the power in the blood cocoon was not pure enough, which led to his unstable foundation. Leng Shiqi made a prompt decision. He no longer coveted a temporary cultivation base and stopped absorbing the blood cocoon's power. But then again, even though he didn't want to absorb it, the energy still kept drilling into his body. Therefore, he had to find a way to release this power. With his current cultivation level, it was enough for him to break free from Sang Hetong's restraints. Thus, he unsheathed his azure rain saber and slashed out with fleeting flash. However, this time was very different from the past. First of all, the power this saber absorbed was not his own power, but the power within the blood cocoon. That was why he didn't use much spirit force. In addition, the moment he swung his blade, he also used the void/divine blade. Unfortunately, he only used a trace of the rhythm of the void/slashing godly blade. However, this accidental combination also allowed Leng Shiqi to see the possibility of the combination of the ephemeral flower and the void-slaying godly blade. If one day in the future he really managed to fuse the ephemeral flash of the night and the void-slaying godly saber, he would truly be able to slash apart both his physical body and primordial spirit. Visible saber light could be dodged or blocked, but an invisible saber that specialized in slashing the primordial spirit was impossible to defend against. Just like the current Sang Hetong, he was caught off guard. In the instant he was distracted, Leng Shiqi waved his hand and hundreds of golden thread goo crawled towards Sang Hetong. Sang Hetong came back to his senses and found that the golden thread goo had already arrived in front of him. His body shook and he started to struggle, trying to break free from Tu Deng's control. A trace of blood suddenly flowed out from the corner of Tu Deng's mouth, but he still firmly restrained Sang Hetong. He knew that the most critical moment had arrived. Hundreds of golden thread goo crawled onto Sang Hetong's body and broke through his skin, drilling into his body. Sang Hetong immediately screamed. His body was filled with dense spirit energy. However, the golden thread goo fed on the spirit energy of myriad spirit goo devouring technique. Not only were they unharmed, they even grew stronger. Normally, Sang Hetong had many ways to kill these golden silk goo, but unfortunately he was powerless now and could only watch as the golden silk goo devoured his spirit energy. Soon, Sang Hetong's spirit energy aura began to drop rapidly. He had absorbed everyone's chi and blood and reached the limit of unity of heaven realm, but now he had fallen to the late stage of unity of heaven realm and was still falling. Late stage, middle stage, early stage. It didn't stop until Sang Hetong's cultivation fell to the late stage of spirit astral realm, because all the golden thread goo were saturated and could no longer devour his spirit energy. During this process, Leng Shiqi held the Qinglin saber in his hand. All of his spiritual energy, mental energy, chi and blood force, as well as his firm will, including the power of the blood cocoons, were mobilized and compressed to the extreme. The Qinglin saber began to tremble and let out a buzzing sound. Just as the golden thread goo stopped, Leng Shiqi slashed out with the strongest saber he had ever used. At this moment the entire space seemed to be frozen. A ray of saber light flashed as if it was going to cut the world in half. Lung Shiqi, who was at the 5th level of Spirit Aperture Realm, condensed all of his strength for a brief moment, and its power was indescribable. Of course, Lung Shiqi didn't have the strength to cut through space, but it was no problem for him to cut a person in half. That person was Sang He-tong. Faced with Lung Shiqi's saber light, which was even stronger than before, he couldn't help but show a horrified expression. Even now, he still had this expression on his face, but his expression had already frozen, because his body had been completely cut in half from the middle. Strangely, not a single drop of blood flowed out from his body. Instead, there was a stinky and disgusting mucus. Those were the goo worms that he had been raising in his body. With the death of his body, those goo worms also died. At this moment, this person who had toyed with everyone in the palm of his hand was finally filled with hatred. Ding! Lung Shiqi suddenly knelt down and used the Qinglin saber to support his body. His final move, a brief moment, seemed to have used up all of his strength. However, immediately after, cracks appeared on the Qinglin saber's body, and it finally shattered with a loud bang. Even a 4th-level spirit tool couldn't withstand the terrifying power of a brief moment. At this moment in Lung Shiqi's eyes, a green shadow floated above Sang He-tong's body. With a thought, the green shadow entered his body. Immediately he felt a strange power cleansing his body and increasing his mental strength. This was the power of Sang He-tong's remnant soul. A remnant soul of the unity of heaven realm. This power allowed Lung Shiqi to recover quite a bit. He stood up and walked forward, directly taking off Sang He-tong's mustard seed bracelet. No one objected to this action because they were still in shock. Chapter 387. Everyone was shocked beyond words when they saw Sang He-tong die. At first, Lung Shiqi stood out, but they didn't have much hope for Lung Shiqi, because Lung Shiqi's cultivation wasn't enough. Although the late stage of Spirit Pulse realm wasn't weak, it was nothing to Sang He-tong, who was in the realm of one with the world. Later, Sang He-tong used the power of blood to pour into Lung Shiqi, wanting to make him explode. Everyone thought that Lung Shiqi was about to die. However, Lung Shiqi continued to absorb the power, and his cultivation soared. He even broke through to the Spirit Aperture realm. This brought a glimmer of hope to the crowd. However, he was still able to control the formation even when his body was under control. In an instant, thousands of people exploded. The rich power of qi and blood formed a blood cocoon around Lung Shiqi. Seeing that Lung Shiqi was about to die, he didn't die. Instead, his cultivation broke through, and he even broke through to the 5th level of the Spirit Aperture realm. Since when was it so easy to break through to the Spirit Aperture realm? One had to know that the most difficult part of the Spirit Aperture realm wasn't cultivating spirit energy, but opening the spirit apertures. They had never heard of anyone who could open dozens of spirit apertures in a few breaths of time. Everything that happened had completely broken everyone's understanding. How could they not be shocked? What surprised them even more was Lung Shiqi's saber. Especially the saber that killed Sang He-tong at the end. That saber caused even the spirit astral realm experts to feel a chill run down their spines. Under the saber, the space was almost frozen. Who could block such a saber technique? Even Sang He-tong couldn't block it and died under the saber. A person in the Spirit Aperture realm had crossed 2 realms and killed Sang He-tong, who was in the realm of one with the world. No one would believe such a thing. Even if it happened right in front of their eyes, they still found it hard to accept. In fact, the biggest contributor to Sang He-tong's death was Tudang. Tudang restricted 90% of Sang He-tong's strength. In addition, Lung Shiqi made Sang He-tong's cultivation fall to Gang Spirit Realm with the help of Golden Thread Venomous Insect. Therefore, Sang He-tong was killed when Sang He-tong had no ability to resist. Otherwise, Lung Shiqi would not be able to deal with Sang He-tong's strange goo arts. No matter how amazing Lung Shiqi's slash was, Sang He-tong would be able to easily break it. After Sang He-tong died, the blood sacrifice formation collapsed on its own without anyone controlling it. Everyone was finally able to move freely again. The blood prison that trapped Yu Ruifeng and Prince Gus had also disappeared. The two of them were now skin and bones and their auras were very weak. It was obvious that they had lost a lot of blood and qi. As for his cultivation, he had fallen to the middle or late stage of Gang Spirit Realm. When they came to Lung Shiqi, they all looked at him with gratitude. However, when Prince Gus looked at Tuding, he showed a thoughtful expression. Tuding did not pay attention to them. He was still sitting cross-legged, murmuring to Sang He-tong's body, as if he was reciting some scriptures. At this time, the remaining 2 or 3,000 imperial guards and masters all gathered around and asked about Prince Gus's well-being. Prince Heli was dead, so it was conceivable that Prince Gus would be their leader in the future. More importantly, Sang He-tong was also dead, and even Princess Bess was killed in the chaos. It seemed that Prince Gus was the best candidate for the throne. As for Chu Li, the Minister of State Affairs, they did not take him seriously. No matter how great Chu Li's prestige was in the imperial court, he did not have any military power, and his strength was negligible. He was not qualified to compete with Prince Gus for the throne. In this way, Prince Gus could be regarded as the next king, so these people naturally cared more about him. Prince Gus chatted with these people for a while and let them go to plunder the resources of the Gu God sect. Tuding, the former sect leader, did not have the slightest reaction. Prince Gus walked to Leng Shiqi and Yu Ruifeng, clasped his fist and said, Lord Lu, it is thanks to you two that we can get rid of Sang He-tong and the Gu God sect. Otherwise we'll all die here. Leng Shiqi did not expect that he could be called Lord Lu by Prince Gus, so he immediately said a few polite words. As for Yu Ruifeng, after taking a deep look at Leng Shiqi, he began to look around. At this moment, 90% of the people had gone to plunder the resources in groups. Only a few spirit cultivators of the 4 realms of Sky Human were protecting Prince Gus, and there were only 4 Dark Thunder Guards left. Among them was Guan Feihong. Leng Shiqi had noticed that something was wrong long ago. He had called Guan Feihong to the edge of the formation, so he was not affected. However, the other Dark Thunder Guards had suffered heavy losses. Even Yuan Tsang, the great supervisor of the South region, had died. Yu Ruifeng's expression was gloomy to the extreme. The Dark Thunder Guards had only come to Zhulu country to go through the motions, but the king had suddenly died, and they were also swept into this huge vortex. In the end, they fell into Sang He-tong's trap, causing them to lose more than half of their manpower. These people were all carefully nurtured by Yu Ruifeng. How could he not feel heartache? But then again, if it were not for Leng Shiqi and Tuding turning the tide, everyone here would have died. In the end, they all became stepping stones for Sang He-tong to break through to the Sky Yuan realm. It was already good enough to be able to survive. Yu Ruifeng glanced at Leng Shiqi and Tuding. He did not know how Leng Shiqi met the previous sect leader of the Gu God sect, nor did he know why Leng Shiqi had such a strange gu like the Golden Silk Gu. He also did not know what Leng Shiqi had experienced when he left the king's city, but the result was that Leng Shiqi had saved him. Because of this, Yu Ruifeng would not ask Leng Shiqi. He said to Leng Shiqi, "Back then your master saved me once. Today you save me again. I don't know when I will be able to repay the kindness of both of you." Leng Shiqi immediately replied, "Martial uncle, what are you talking about? There is no need to mention repayment between us." "Ah, good. Yu Ruifeng will recognize you as my nephew." Yu Ruifeng patted Leng Shiqi's shoulder and laughed. Prince Gus looked at Yu Ruifeng. He also found that there were only 6 Dark Thunder Guards left, including Yu Ruifeng and Leng Shiqi. How should he explain this to the Dark Thunder Guards? How should he explain to the Thunder Flame dynasty? Unknowingly, Prince Gus had put himself in the shoes of a king. Prince Gus walked over with a solemn expression. Yu Ruifeng knew what he was thinking with a glance. "Prince Gus, I can report this matter to the Thunder Flame dynasty. However, I want 50% of the Gu God sect's cultivation resources and I want priority in choosing them." Upon hearing this, Prince Gus felt relieved. If Yu Ruifeng had reported the truth, then all the blame would have been pushed onto the dead Sang He-tong. However, he soon felt a wave of heartache. Yu Ruifeng wanted 50% of the Gu God sect's cultivation resources. This was an exorbitant demand. The Gu God sect was not only a first-rate faction, but also the national religion of the Zhulu country. Who knew how much wealth they had accumulated over the years? However, Prince Gus agreed without any hesitation. As long as he could spend money, he was naturally willing. Chapter 388. Leng Shiqi could understand Yu Ruifeng's need for resources. Because Sang He-tong had drained a large amount of qi, blood and spirit energy, Yu Ruifeng's qi and blood loss was very serious, and his spirit energy cultivation had also dropped by a large realm. Therefore, he naturally needed a large amount of resources to recover his cultivation as soon as possible. After receiving an answer from Yu Ruifeng, Prince Gus brought people to inspect the resources, so as to prevent people from filling their pockets. Yu Ruifeng began to adjust his breathing under the protection of several Dark Lightning Guards. At this time, Tuding sighed slightly. Leng Shiqi stepped forward and bowed, "Many thanks to Senior for saving my life." Tuding didn't care about this matter. He sighed, "AI, this old man seems to have seen his past self in Sang Hetong, and also seems to have seen another version of himself. At that time, if Sang Hetong hadn't imprisoned this old man, perhaps one day this old man would have done such an intolerable thing. Power is really too tempting." Sang Hetong was completely addicted to the pursuit of power, and even this old man almost fell for it. Little friend Lu was able to take the initiative to stop absorbing the power of the blood cocoon to increase his cultivation. "This old man admires you for having such a strong will." Leng Shiqi modestly said, "Senior is too kind. This old man isn't overpraising you. Little friend Lu has the potential to become a supreme expert. If he doesn't die young, he will definitely become a powerful expert in the future. Now that this matter is over, the Gu God sect that this old man created has been completely destroyed. This old man's heart can be considered to have no more worries. From now on, this old man will save the dying and heal the injured with this ruined body of mine. This can more or less make up for the sins this old man committed in the past." After saying this, Tu Deng turned around to leave. "Senior, wait." Leng Shiqi stopped him and quickly stepped forward to take out a mustard seed bag. "This is?" Leng Shiqi said with a smile, "Senior will know when you see it." Tu Deng's spirit entered the mustard seed bag. Then, even though he had experienced a lot and his will was as firm as a mountain at this time, he revealed an expression of shock, joy, and eagerness. The mustard seed bag contained the other 8 sets of scriptures. There were hundreds of scriptures. "Little friend Lu, what are you doing?" Leng Shiqi said seriously, "Senior, to be honest, I came across these books by accident. They don't seem to be products of the Falling Star continent." Junior is slow-witted because he was unable to comprehend the profoundness within. As the saying goes, treasured swords are given to heroes. I will give these to Senior. Tuding, to be precise, it should be Tuding's kindness, was the only person Leng Shiqi had seen since he came to this world who was suitable for these sutras. Rather than leaving it here to collect dust, he might as well gift it to Tu Deng. This was his sincere offer. Of course, it would be best if he could do her a favor. Tuding viewed these scriptures as treasures, but he still shook his head and said, "I can't take your things for free. It's a pity that I don't have anything valuable on me. How about this? I can promise you 3 things. As he spoke, he took out 3 emerald green jade beads and said, "This old man will still be in Zhulu country in the next few years. Little friend, if you come with this token, this old man can do 3 things for little friend, as long as you don't go against this old man's wishes." Leng Shiqi's heart shook and he was pleasantly surprised. He originally thought that it would be fine as long as he could do a favor, but he didn't expect Tuding to be so generous. This was equivalent to him being able to use a Unity of Heaven expert 3 times. This gave Leng Shiqi a lot more confidence. Leng Shiqi also knew that since Tuding said this, he wouldn't take it back. He didn't stand on ceremony and directly took the 3 jade beads and carefully put them away. Seeing this, Tuding revealed a smile. Leng Shiqi suddenly thought of something and immediately asked, "Senior, what is the origin of this formation that Sang Hetong used?" To be honest, this junior has seen a similar formation in a secret realm before. Tuding heard this and immediately frowned. This old man actually doesn't know much about this formation. This formation is an ancient book that this old man obtained by chance when he was young and traveling. I've never paid too much attention to it. A few decades ago, Sang Hetong suddenly discovered this thing and was very obsessed with it. This old man was afraid that he would go astray, so I destroyed the ancient book that recorded the formation. I didn't think that Sang Hetong would be able to deduce the complete formation from a few words. AI, if he put all his effort into comprehending the power of heaven and earth, he might be able to rely on his own strength to break through to the heaven origin realm." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi nodded. 10,000 years ago, Meng Tianzong had also killed over 10,000 disciples of the Divine Illusion Palace in order to break through. Meng Tianzong and Sang Hetong's methods were almost the same, so Leng Shiqi thought that there was some connection between the two. It seemed that everything was just a coincidence. So that's how it is. Little friend, if there is nothing else, this old man will take his leave. Farewell, Senior. Tuding said and left. He didn't even look at the Gu God Peak from start to finish. Leng Shiqi looked around and saw that there was nothing else for him to do. Thus, he walked to Yu Ruifeng's side and closed his eyes to adjust his breathing. Now that too many accidents had occurred in the process of his breakthrough, he needed to sort them out properly. First, he was more concerned about the strange realm between the Spirit Pulse realm and the Spirit Aperture realm. He called it the Spirit Pulse realm level 10. When he was at the Spirit Pulse realm level 10, a door appeared in his spirit sea. That door helped him absorb a huge amount of blood chi. Otherwise, he would have exploded before he could break through to the spirit aperture realm. But what was that door? Leng Shiqi didn't know. He had never heard of such a situation in the many cultivation methods he cultivated. He could only look through ancient books to find out. If he couldn't, he could ask Wuxia. Other than that, what Leng Shiqi was more concerned about were the strange memories that suddenly appeared in his mind. The fall of gods and devils, the collapse of heaven and earth, mountains of corpses and seas of bones, and the last thing that appeared was the Dark Shadow clan. Although Leng Shiqi didn't see the changes in himself at that time, he could feel a cold mark on his forehead. That mark also helped him absorb a lot of blood qi. Therefore, the Dark Shadow clan became a target for him to investigate in the future. However, whether it was that door or the mysterious Dark Shadow clan, they were far less important than another thing, and that was the system. After Leng Shiqi erased the system's consciousness, he didn't have time to check the system's changes. He immediately opened the system. The interface didn't change much. First was his personal information: name, Leng Shiqi Lu Xingji, cultivation, spirit aperture realm level 5 status, insufficient spiritual power bloodline, Dark Shadow clan unknown management authority, 37% cultivation method. Cold underworld treasure golden mystic yang art 5 god flowing light art 1000 turns fantasy world art 10,000 goose spirit devouring technique spiritual skills. Rank 5 spiritual skill golden mountain breaking seal rank 5 spiritual skill bright sun. Mystic Yang Palm rank 5 spiritual skill cold underworld palm rank 5 spiritual skill cold underworld palm secret technique void slashing god destroying blade system coins. 1382 The biggest changes in his information were his bloodline and management authority. The bloodline showed that he had the bloodline of the Dark Shadow clan. Moreover, he had another unknown bloodline. However, other than that strange scene, Leng Shiqi's body didn't change at all. Then what was the use of this bloodline? He frowned and thought for a while but couldn't figure it out. He simply stopped thinking about it and focused on the management authority. Especially when there was a 37% after these 4 words. Does this mean that I have 37% of the management authority in the system? But how do I use this authority? Then he opened the system inventory. Everything was normal. He then opened the map system. The 4 words that entered his eyes made his whole body tremble. Map fully opened. 10,000 system coins will be used. Fully opened. Leng Shiqi stared at these words, afraid that his eyes were playing tricks on him. The system map was a very useful thing. Not only could he observe the terrain, but he could also use the fate skill to teleport. However, the system map had a huge flaw. That was that Leng Shiqi had to open the map himself. If he could open the map fully, this flaw would be completely solved. Leng Shiqi felt that the 10,000 system coins would be worth it. Unfortunately, he didn't have that many system coins right now. This matter would have to be delayed for a while. Then he opened the system store. There were still only 4 items in the system store. However, a refresh button appeared at the bottom right corner. He looked at the description and learned that he had 3 chances to refresh the system store every day. The biggest drawback of the system store was that it was too random. Now that he had 3 more chances to refresh, it was quite good. Finally, when Leng Shiqi was about to exit the system store, a line of words popped up on the interface. The system is about to be upgraded. It will take 30 natural days. The system will not be able to be used during the upgrade. Upgrade? Leng Shiqi was no stranger to this message. Every time he broke through a realm, the system would be upgraded. He was already used to it. He first transferred the things he used frequently to the mustard seed bracelet and chose yes. However, to his surprise, another message appeared. Administrator Host 01 has requested to upgrade the system. Do you agree? Leng Shiqi's heart skipped a beat as he stared at the line of words. After a while he said, yes. System upgrade commencing. Progress 0.001%. Chapter 389. Leng Shiqi felt like he was cheating when he saw the changes in the system map and the system store. But the last request of the system made him feel that he had the authority of a manager. At the same time, he was looking forward to the upgrade of the system. Now that he had a lot of administrative authority, he would be able to use more authority after the upgrade of the system. In the end, Leng Shiqi began to study the 5 God flowing light formula. After he reached the spirit aperture realm, the second level of the 5 God flowing light formula appeared, which was enough for him to reach the gang spirit realm. Besides, there were 2 new spiritual techniques. They were the 5 God intimidating spell and the light rotation formation, both of which were at the 5th level. The five-god intimidating spell was the upgraded version of the intimidating spell he had practiced before. It used the body of a god to enter the enemy's consciousness and intimidate the enemy's mind. Every time the five-god intimidating spell was upgraded, one more god's shadow would appear. When the spell was completed, it could produce 5 gods' shadows. The light rotation formation was an offensive spiritual technique, which could be summoned behind the user to activate the light rotation formation, which was very powerful. Leng Shiqi didn't choose to upgrade the 2 spiritual techniques with unlimited skill points. Instead, he decided to practice them with his own strength. First of all, when he was fighting with the system's consciousness, Leng Shiqi knew that he didn't have enough means. In particular, the system's words before it died made him feel a little uneasy. The system's consciousness might appear again in the future, so he had to be careful. Second of all, Leng Shiqi was born with a great talent for the 5-god flowing light formula. When he was in the Phantom Spirit Secret Realm, it only took him 2 hours to reach the first level. Therefore, Leng Shiqi decided to practice the 2 spiritual techniques by himself. Now that he had some time, he began to understand the mnemonics. In the afternoon, Prince Gus came. Lord Yu, the resources of the Gu God sect have been sorted out. Yu Ruifeng stood up and took Leng Shiqi and the rest of the Dark Thunder Guards to the Gu God Temple of the Gu God sect. At this time, all the resources of the Gu God sect were piled up in different categories. Looking around, it actually filled up half of the hall. The Gu God sect was a first-rate power, and it was also the national religion of Zhulu country. Not only did it have a lot of resources, but they were also very precious. Leng Shiqi secretly swallowed his saliva. Prince Gus said, Lord Yu, according to our previous agreement, you can take a limited 50% of the resources here. Losing half of the resources really made Prince Gus' heart ache, but compared to the throne, compared to the stability of Zhulu country, it was nothing. However, Yu Ruifeng turned to Leng Shiqi and said, Nephew, you can have 10% of my 50%. You can choose first. Both Leng Shiqi and Prince Gus were stunned when they heard this. Prince Gus didn't expect Yu Ruifeng to be so generous. However, since Leng Shiqi had saved their lives, he didn't feel ashamed to receive 10% of the resources. Leng Shiqi was also a little surprised because he had already taken Sang Hitong's mustard seed bracelet. The collection of the leader of the Gu God sect was priceless. He was also very satisfied. Of course, he would definitely take the resources that were sent to his door. The reason why Yu Ruifeng did this was nothing more than to get closer to him. Today, Leng Shiqi saved him and showed his incomparable terrifying talent. He was also favored by Eunuch Gao, one of the Dark Thunder Guards. His future was limitless. It was obviously a wise choice to give him benefits and investment when his cultivation was not high and his reputation was not well known. Therefore, Leng Shiqi politely said a few words and began to choose. First of all, what he needed most was a suitable spiritual sword. Because the Green Rain sword could not withstand the power of the short-lived flash in the pan, he urgently needed a 5th level or even better spiritual sword. Leng Shiqi went straight to the area where the spiritual weapons were piled. He looked around and found that the highest level of spiritual weapon was only 6th level. 6th level spiritual weapons were unattainable for ordinary spirit cultivators. Generally, only the masters of the Gang Spirit realm were qualified to have them. But for a first-class sect like the Gu God sect, it was a bit shabby. Leng Shiqi thought about it. The Gu God sect focused on the cultivation of the Gu God sect, and their disciples rarely used spiritual weapons, so he was relieved. He kept looking around and soon fixed his eyes on a spiritual sword. The sword was pitch black, about the same length as the Green Rain sword, but the blade was wider. There were small saw teeth on the back of the sword, which looked very ferocious. The whole sword gave people a feeling of fierceness. Most importantly, even if the sword was not moved, it would faintly emit a faint demonic chi. Obviously, it was a demonic sword. 6th level demonic sword, Demon Arrival Battle Sword. Leng Shiqi was immediately attracted by the Demon Arrival Battle Sword. He reached out to hold the sword, and the Demon Arrival Battle Sword trembled violently, as if it wanted to break free from his hand. Leng Shiqi was surprised and happy. The sword seemed to have a trace of spirituality. As far as he knew, among the spiritual weapons, those below the 7th level were called spiritual weapons, and those below the 7th level were called treasured weapons. Because the 7th level treasured weapons had a certain degree of spirituality, they could be more compatible with the user's cultivation method and spiritual skills, and their power would be multiplied. The Demon Arrival Battle Sword was at the 6th level, but it had a trace of spirituality, which meant that it was very close to the 7th level. Leng Shiqi snorted softly, and the vigorous spiritual power in his body operated, instantly making the demon arrival battle sword behave. Then he did not put the sword into the mustard seed bracelet, but carried it on his back, nourishing it with his aura. With the addition of the 6th level demonic sword, not only did it replace the Azure Rain sword, but it also increased Leng Shiqi's strength by another level. He patted the demon arrival battle sword with satisfaction, and continued to choose from the pile of spiritual weapons. After all, spiritual weapons were the most direct things to increase one's battle strength. Next he chose the level 5 spirit tools, the sharp peak spear and the profound ice bow. In this way his most commonly used weapons were greatly strengthened. After choosing the spiritual weapons, Leng Shiqi's next target was materials. In the past, Leng Shiqi did not like to collect materials, and almost all of them were sold to the system. But now that he was in the Spirit Aperture realm, it was different. The most important resource in the Spirit Aperture realm was the Awakening Pill. Although Leng Shiqi had already opened 81 spiritual apertures, this was not his limit, so he needed a large amount of Awakening Pills. And in the Illusory Spirit realm, he had obtained the recipe for the Awakening Pill, so now he needed to collect a large amount of materials to refine the Awakening Pill. After a while, Leng Shiqi filled 2 mustard seed bags with materials. He estimated that his 10% should be enough, so he prepared to stop. But at this time he took a fancy to another item. Chapter 390. That thing was called the Scarlet Blood Jade. It was a heavenly treasure that was used to strengthen the body. It was rank 6. After Leng Shiqi absorbed a large amount of blood essence and Sang Hetong's soul, his body was stuck between the late stage of the spirit transformation realm and the spirit vein realm. If he were to slowly refine it, it would take a long time, so he coveted the Scarlet Blood Jade. Leng Shiqi silently took the Scarlet Blood Jade, and Yu Ruifeng didn't say anything. At this point there was nothing else he wanted. There were no cultivation methods or spirit techniques here because all of the Gu God sect's cultivation methods were stored in another pavilion. Unfortunately, the pavilion suddenly collapsed after Sang Hetong's death. It seemed that Sang Hetong had done something to the inside. However, Leng Shiqi didn't lack cultivation methods or spirit techniques. Not to mention the most profound cultivation method of the Gu God sect, the 10,000 Gu spirit devouring art, was on him. It was even more complete than the one Sang Hetong had. Next, it was Yu Ruifeng's turn to choose his 40%. What Yu Ruifeng chose were basically all elixirs that were used to replenish his chi, blood, and spiritual energy. After he finished choosing, the group packed up and left the Gu God Peak to return to the King's City. Leng Shiqi suddenly thought of someone who had never shown up before. It was Princess Carol. Leng Shiqi remembered that after he lured out the experts of the Gu God sect, Princess Carol had never appeared. Logically speaking, she was an expert at the Spirit Aperture realm, and her battle prowess was not weak. However, she had never shown her face from beginning to end. He didn't know where Princess Carol had run off to, but now that the situation was set, she couldn't do anything by herself. When everyone reached the mountainside, Leng Shiqi suddenly stopped in his tracks as if he had thought of something. He said to Yu Ruifeng, "Lord Yu, I remember that there are a few Gu worm caves nearby. I want to take some back to study." Yu Ruifeng agreed without hesitation. "It's okay. Go ahead." "Thank you, Lord," Leng Shiqi said and left the group, rushing towards the Gu worm cave. When Leng Shiqi was at the spirit vein realm, he could only raise 1,000 Gu worms, and most of them were golden silk Gu. The golden silk Gu was used to counter the 10,000 Gu spirit devouring art. But now, there were only 3 people who cultivated the 10,000 Gu spirit devouring art. They were himself, Tu Deng and Princess Carol. Thus, the golden silk Gu's effect was greatly reduced. In addition, Leng Shiqi reached the 5th layer of the Spirit Aperture realm and could raise 2,000 Gu worms. Thus, he came here to replenish his Gu worms. Fortunately, the Imperial Guards did not destroy these Gu worm caves. Because these caves contained countless Gu worms, it was quite troublesome to begin with. Moreover, if no one nurtured and raised them, these Gu worms would die in a short period of time. Thus, the Imperial Guards did not pay attention to the Gu worm cave. Leng Shiqi immediately activated the myriad Gu spirit devouring technique and entered one of the Gu worm caves. He habitually activated his supercilious eyes to prevent anyone from coming over. But he immediately sensed Princess Carol's aura not far from him. At this moment, Leng Shiqi finally understood. It turned out that Princess Carol had been hiding in this Gu worm cave. These countless Gu worms had completely isolated her aura. No wonder no one had discovered her. However, regardless of whether she was here to collect goo worms or to avoid disaster, Leng Shiqi still had a debt to settle with her. Princess Kaluo was currently in another goo worm cave. She was concentrating on forming hand seals. In front of her, numerous goo worms were devouring each other. But right at this moment, a familiar voice resounded. "Princess Carol, you have truly harmed me." Hearing this voice, Princess Carol's body trembled. She almost lost control of the seals in her hands. This voice came from Leng Shiqi, who was disguised as Wuxia. To Princess Carol, the appearance of this voice was completely out of her expectations. In fact, when she saw Leng Shiqi enter Goo God Peak, she sneaked into Goo God Peak from another direction. Later, Leng Shiqi really lured all the experts of the 4 realms of human and heaven, and Princess Carol secretly came to the Goo Cave. She did not forget her original purpose, which was to find a way to detoxify the princess. Not long after she entered the Goo Cave, she sensed that the Goo God sect had activated the sect protecting formation. She knew that the princess, the main combat faction, and the Dark Thunder Guards had definitely come to fight. But Princess Carol did not come out because she also felt that their side would definitely win. But later, there were waves of spirit energy fluctuations that made her heart palpitate from the peak, making her feel uneasy. Unfortunately, even if she went out, she could not change the situation of the battle. It was better to continue refining goo here and detoxify the princess. At this moment, Leng Shiqi suddenly appeared here. He clearly did not come in, but he could call out her name. This made her feel incredulous. But what was even more incredulous was that Leng Shiqi actually walked into the Goo Cave. He walked to Princess Carol's side. Princess Carol looked at Leng Shiqi in shock. Not just anyone could enter the Goo Worm Cave. One had to have a high level of goo techniques to enter. Otherwise, one would definitely be eaten to death by 50 goo worms. But when she saw that Leng Shiqi's body was surging with green light that was of the same origin as hers, she was even more shocked. She exclaimed, 10,000 goo spirit devouring technique? How can you know the 10,000 goo spirit devouring technique? Leng Shiqi said coldly, Princess Carol, you're really forgetful. Could it be that you've forgotten that you've spread this cultivation technique in Misty Chi City? Also, shouldn't I be the one asking the questions? Princess Carol's expression froze. She recalled that she had indeed passed on the first 2 levels of the myriad goo spirit devouring technique back then. They were all from the same organization, so it made sense that this Wuxia would obtain the cultivation technique. However, the 10,000 goo spirit devouring technique was not an ordinary technique. This kind of goo technique was very difficult to cultivate without guidance. But now, not only did he cultivate it, but he could also use it freely. This alone was shocking enough. What made her even more puzzled and surprised was that Wuxia cultivated an extremely vicious technique with heavy yin energy. But now, he could actually use the 10,000 goo spirit devouring technique? He could actually cultivate 2 techniques at the same time? Leng Shiqi ignored Princess Carol's shocked expression and said, Your Highness, you said before that if I helped you lure away the experts of the Goo God sect, you would give me the mind-controlling goo. But you suddenly disappeared. It really took me a while to find you. Chapter 391. Leng Shiqi didn't give Princess Carol any face. He said sternly, Princess Carol, I will ask you one question. I risked my life to help you lure out the experts of the Goo God sect and fulfilled my promise. Will you give me the mind-controlling insect or not? Speaking of this, the spirit energy in his body circulated rapidly, emitting the aura of the 5th level of the spirit aperture realm. Moreover, it contained traces of killing intent. Princess Carol's expression suddenly changed. 5th level of the spirit aperture realm. You were hiding your cultivation before. This is my true strength, so Princess Carol, don't think you can get away by luck. With your cultivation at the 2nd level of the spirit aperture realm, you can't escape from me. Of course, if you hand over the mind-controlling insect, I can let bygones be bygones. Leng Shiqi followed Princess Carol's words and said coldly. Princess Carol's face became pale. To tell you the truth, I don't have the mind-controlling insect on me. Are you playing with me? Leng Shiqi's eyes released a ferocious killing intent. Don't worry, Your Excellency. Right now, we have something 100 times more precious than the mind-controlling insect in front of us. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but be a little surprised. Oh? What is it? The Goo King. Princess Carol opened her mouth and said these 2 words. Leng Shiqi looked at the goo worms that were still fighting and devouring each other. They were very similar to the people on the Blood Mist Island. Princess Carol explained, if I'm not wrong, the Gu God sect should have been destroyed by the two princes and my mother. These Gu worms in the cave naturally became ownerless. I once comprehended the secret method of an ancient secret scroll by chance and learned the method to cultivate the Gu King. If everything goes well, we can use these Gu worms in the cave to cultivate an unprecedented Gu King. At that time, I only need to use it to detoxify my mother, and then the Gu King will belong to your excellency. Leng Shiqi was very interested when he heard about the Gu King. These Gu worms would self-destruct after a while, so using them to cultivate the Gu King could be considered making the best use of them. However, from Princess Carol's words, it seemed that she didn't know the truth of what happened at the summit, nor did she know that Bess was actually dead. But Leng Shiqi didn't expose her. He asked, "How can I trust your highness? I dare not flatter your highness's credibility." Princess Carol solemnly said, "I won't joke around with my mother's life. Besides, my life is in your hands, so what are you worried about?" Leng Shiqi shook his head. "No matter what Princess Carol says, I won't believe you unless you let me plant a Gu worm in your body." Planting Gu? Princess Carol snickered inwardly. She had the 10,000 Gu spirit devouring art, so how could she be afraid of Gu worms? But when Leng Shiqi took out a few golden thread Gu, Princess Kaluo's expression showed some panic. "Why do you have the golden silk Gu? No, you have also cultivated the 10,000 Gu devouring spirit technique, so how can you control the golden silk Gu?" Leng Shiqi frowned. "Your highness has too many questions. If you want me to believe you, plant the golden silk Gu. If your highness goes back on her words, half of your cultivation will be crippled. Then how can I trust you to take out the golden silk Gu?" "Umph." Leng Shiqi coldly snorted. "It seems that your highness hasn't realized the current situation. You only have two choices. Plant the golden silk Gu and give the Gu King to me. I will naturally remove the golden silk Gu for you. Or die." Princess Carol's body trembled with anger, but she had no other choice. For her own life and her mother's life, she nodded. "Very good." Leng Shiqi stretched out his hand, and several golden silk Gu landed on Princess Carol's arm and drilled into her skin. Princess Carol didn't resist at all. Leng Shiqi smiled with satisfaction. "Your highness is truly sensible. How long will it take to nurture the Gu King?" Princess Carol suppressed her anger, but she didn't show it, replying, "Nurturing the Gu King is easier said than done. Although there are countless Gu worms to use, it will take at least 5 days. Moreover, it might not succeed." Leng Shiqi thought to himself, 5 days I can accept it. After Prince Gusi inherits the throne, I will have to hold her accountable for this, which will take a few days. Thus he said, "Fine, but I believe that Princess Carol will succeed. I will come back in 5 days. I hope Princess Carol won't do anything stupid during this time." Saying so, he directly left the Gu worm cave and set up a lightning destruction formation and golden silk Gu near several Gu worm caves. If Princess Carol dared to escape, her fate would be miserable. Afterwards, he didn't leave in a hurry, but went to another Gu worm cave and picked over 1,000 Gu worms. Even if he could obtain the Gu King in the future, these Gu worms had their own uses. It would be a waste if he didn't take them. On the other side, Prince Gusi ignored his injuries and led the Imperial Guards at full speed, using only half a day to rush back to King City. The reason why he was so anxious was because Sang and Tong had said that if he succeeded in killing everyone and breaking through to Heaven Origin stage, he would help Elder Chuli ascend the throne. Therefore, Sang and Tong might have left something in King City, and Prince Gusi had to hurry back to deal with it. Sure enough, when they rushed back to King City, the whole place was solemn, and there were ceremonial guards erected everywhere. It was clearly a ceremony for a new king to ascend the throne. Prince Gusi pulled over a guard and asked, "What's going on?" The guard trembled. "Lord Elder Chuli is preparing to ascend the throne." Impudent. What right does he have to ascend the throne? Who gave him the courage? Prince Gusi already had a guess, but when he heard the answer, he couldn't help but be furious. He finally understood that Sang and Tong had already made all the arrangements. If everything went according to Sang and Tong's plan, Sang and Tong would have succeeded, and Chuli would have the qualifications to ascend the throne. However, Prince Gusi, was now back. Next, Prince Gusi led a group of Heaven Origin stage experts and 2,000 Imperial Guards into King City. At this time, in the main hall of King City, Elder Chuli was dressed in king's attire, bowing in front of an old man. The old man was holding a crown in his hand, and his expression was solemn and solemn. Chuli was in the middle of being crowned. Previously, he claimed that the two princes had given up the fight for the throne, and their whereabouts were unknown. Then he stood his ground and forcefully held the coronation ceremony. There were also many people who went to look for the two princes and even the princess consort, but there was no news, and they could only let Chu Li do as he wished. However, just as the crown was about to be placed on Chu Li's head, a guard ran in a panic. Prince Gusi has brought the imperial guards in. Chu Li was shocked and his body fell to the ground and the crown fell to the ground with a ding sound. Chapter 392. After Leng Shiqi returned to the post house, he began to count Sang He's mustard seed bracelet. Previously there were too many people outside, so it was not convenient for him to count. When he opened Sang He's mustard seed bracelet, he found that most of them were spirit stones, and they were not ordinary spirit stones, they were almost all middle-grade spirit stones. Leng Shiqi used his mental power to detect that there were more than 1,000 middle-grade spirit stones. If converted to ordinary spirit stones, it was equivalent to about 100,000 spirit stones. Suddenly receiving such a huge amount of money, even Leng Shiqi felt a little smug. He did not expect Sang He Tong to be so rich. Of course now it was Leng Shiqi who was rich. With enough spirit stones, he would be able to use the yin and yang spirit convergence array to cultivate without fear. In addition to the spirit stones, there were countless high-grade resources in the mustard seed bracelet, but most of them were useless to him, so he prepared to give them to Nine Leave. Among the remaining items, Leng Shiqi was most happy with a ring called the Gu God Ring. This was the ring that Sang He Tong personally wore. It was a grade 7 ring. This Gu God Ring was also a spiritual tool, more accurately it was a treasure tool. The Gu God Ring's greatest use was to allow the Gu God devouring technique to be used to the extreme, and it could greatly increase the power of mental power and spiritual skills. Leng Shiqi had secretly tested it before, and with the support of the divine Gu Ring, the power of his spiritual skills had increased by several folds. In addition to the Gu God Ring, there were also many spiritual tools. Leng Shiqi kept a few of these things as spares, and prepared to sell the rest to the system to open the map. The most unique among them were the cultivation methods and experiences of various Gu worms. These were the personal possessions of Sang He Tong, the leader of the Gu God sect, and their value was immeasurable. Unfortunately, the Gu God sect had been destroyed and there were not many people in Zhulu who were proficient in Gu techniques, so these things were somewhat useless. However, Leng Shiqi suddenly had an idea and murmured, "These things may be very useful." When he was almost done, he closed his eyes and began to cultivate. Leng Shiqi's cultivation had advanced by leaps and bounds, but at the same time, his foundation was somewhat unstable. He urgently needed to consolidate it. In addition, he also had many advanced spiritual skills, and it was time for him to deduce and integrate them. Thus, he used the soul-splitting technique to split his consciousness into two halves. While consolidating his cultivation, he also deduced his spiritual technique. 3 days later, Prince Gus held his coronation ceremony. Elder Chu Li, on the other hand, was placed under house arrest for the rest of his life. Prince Gus wanted to kill him, but Chu Li's foundation in the imperial court was too deep. Rashly killing him would cause him to lose the support of the people, so he could only remove him from his post and place him under house arrest. Yu Ruifeng, as the special envoy of the Thunderfire dynasty, also went to participate. Leng Shiqi did not go as he needed to settle down and could not afford to waste any time. Prince Gus, or more precisely King Gus, reorganized the imperial court in the next few days. Those who should be eliminated were eliminated, and those who should be promoted were promoted. The entire imperial city had changed. However, this had nothing to do with Leng Shiqi. On the 5th day he activated the Fate skill. At this time, he was pleasantly surprised to find that the furthest distance he could teleport had expanded from 300 miles to 500 miles. Then he directly teleported to the mountainside of the Gu God Peak. As soon as he appeared, he first checked the Thunder Destruction Array and the Golden Silk Gu that had been set up before. After finding that they were all normal, he felt relieved. Leng Shiqi opened his eyes and immediately found Princess Carol's position. However, her current state did not seem to be very good. The spiritual force in her body was almost exhausted. Beside her, there was a very weak spiritual force aura, which was probably equivalent to a spirit cultivator in the pure spirit realm. Leng Shiqi came to Princess Carol's side. Her face was pale as she maintained a seal, controlling a fingernail-sized, mottled Gu worm in front of her. This Gu worm was struggling with all its might. Seeing Leng Shiqi appear, she hurriedly said, "Zhuqiu, you're finally here. Give me some pills to recover my spiritual force." Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed and he handed over a spirit overflowing pill. This was the most suitable pill for spirit aperture realm cultivators to recover their spiritual force. Princess Carol also showed a trace of surprise. She opened her mouth and swallowed the pill. Her face also had a touch of red. After a long while, the strange goo worm finally settled down and finally drilled into Princess Carol's body. Princess Carol took a deep breath and said, "Fortunately you came. Otherwise all my efforts would have been for naught." Leng Shiqi also saw that Princess Carol was almost unable to collect the goo worm due to insufficient spiritual force. However, he was puzzled. Was that weak-looking goo worm the legendary Goo King? So he asked, "Princess Carol, did you successfully cultivate the Goo King?" "Yes." Princess Kahlua replied, "This Goo King is the one that survived after countless goo worms killed and devoured each other in several goo worm caves. I used an ancient secret method to refine it and finally succeeded. However, the Goo King has just been born and is still very weak. It still needs to devour many rare resources to continue evolving." "I see." Leng Shiqi was also a bit surprised. The Goo King born from so many goo worms was actually so weak. As if sensing Leng Shiqi's thoughts, Princess Carol said with a serious expression, "Zuochuyu, don't underestimate the Goo King. Even if it's very weak now, it still has the ability to restrain all goo in the world. After I use it to absorb the goo poison in my mother's body, I will give it to you." Leng Shiqi was silent for a moment. "I don't think there is a need to go through so much trouble." Princess Carol immediately became vigilant. She said solemnly, "Are you going back on your words?" "No." Leng Shiqi shook his head. He stretched out his hand and took out the gold thread goo that was hidden in Princess Carol's body. Princess Carol's heart calmed down a bit, but she did not relax her vigilance. Leng Shiqi said, "There is something you might not know." Next, he told Princess Carol everything that happened on the peak of Gushin Peak. He described it from the perspective of an ordinary person. He did not hide anything. She only needed to ask around and she would know. However, when Princess Carol learned that Bess had died an unnatural death and Gus had succeeded the throne, her mind went blank. It was as if her sky had collapsed. In fact, it was true. Her parents were the king and his wife, and she was the princess who was loved by everyone. But in just a few days she lost her parents and her noble status. In fact, as long as she dared to show herself, Gus would send people to kill her to prevent future troubles. Her sky had indeed collapsed. Princess Carol could not help but spit out a mouthful of blood. These days she had been cultivating the Goo King with all her might. Her goal was to detoxify Princess Beth. This was her belief. However, this belief had already collapsed. It turned out that everything she did was useless. Princess Carol said in a mournful voice, "You already knew, didn't you?" Leng Shiqi did not speak. "Yes, you just wanted the Goo King. If you had told me earlier, I would not have cultivated the Goo King." "Ridiculous, it turns out I was a chess piece in someone else's hands from beginning to end, being used all along." Her voice became softer and softer. Leng Shiqi could even feel a trace of desire to die from her. However, Leng Shiqi said to her, "Do you want to take revenge?" Princess Carol abruptly raised her head and glared at him, her eyes filled with boundless hatred. Chapter 393. Seeing the hatred in Princess Carol's eyes, Leng Shiqi knew she no longer had the will to die. He said, "Actually, you should know that if you and Princess Consort interfered in the fight for the throne, you would likely end up like this. Even if Sang Hetong did not kill Princess Consort, she would have died at Gus' hands sooner or later. You should be glad you hid in this goo worm cave, otherwise, you would have died long ago." Princess Carol knew Leng Shiqi was speaking the truth, but she did not want to hear it now. She said darkly, "What do you want to say? Have you ever thought about why Princess Consort interfered in the fight for the throne? Why do you think she chose to work with the pro-war faction after knowing she was poisoned? This is like asking a tiger for its skin, but she still did it." Leng Shiqi looked into Princess Carol's eyes and continued, "She did it for you. If I am not wrong, Princess Consort's original intention is for the pro-war faction and the pro-peace faction to both suffer losses, and she will benefit from it. If her plan succeeds, do you think it will be her or you who will sit on the throne?" Princess Carol bit her lips, her shoulders starting to tremble. Every word Leng Shiqi said seemed to stab at the weakest part of her heart. But Leng Shiqi did not stop. "Therefore, only by ascending to the throne of Zhulu country can you truly inherit the will of the king and Princess Consort. You can truly take revenge for them. And I can help you." "Haha." Princess Carol laughed bitterly. "Throne? I am alone right now, I have nothing, how can I ascend to the throne? It is simply a fantasy. You cannot do it now, but that does not mean you cannot do it in the future. You can take a look at this first." Saying this, Leng Shiqi took out a mustard seed bag and threw it over. Princess Carol subconsciously caught it and opened the mustard seed bag to take a look. Her pupils shrunk as she showed a shocked expression. This mustard seed bag contained all of Sang Hetong's Gu refinement techniques. There was even the next level of the 10,000 Gu spirit devouring method. Princess Carol knew how precious these things were, but she was even more shocked. How did he obtain them? Leng Shiqi stood with his hands behind his back. He did not explain but said, "Your Highness, there are some spirit cultivators who cultivate Gu techniques in Jianghu country. With your talent and the support of these resources, you can establish your own sect. Furthermore, with your means, you can hide your identity and take up an official position in Monarch City. This way you'll have some followers both inside and outside the city. Of course, this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that you are a princess and have the right to inherit the throne. When the time is right, you will have the opportunity to overthrow Gus." Princess Carol's eyes flickered with uncertainty. It did sound possible, but she shook her head and said, "Even if that's the case, I'm afraid the possibility is less than half. I'm digging my own grave by doing this." "Of course, that's not all." Leng Shiqi smiled strangely and said, "There is also a highly respected old official in Monarch City who has pledged allegiance to us. Although he is under house arrest now, the foundation behind him is still very deep. When the time comes, he will be a great help to you." Although Princess Carol had not come into contact with the outside world, from Leng Shiqi's words, she could guess who that person was. It must be the previous elder, Chu Li. She could not help but be surprised. The other party could actually rope in Chu Li. How many unimaginable methods did they have? In addition, we also have great experts in the Unity of Heaven realm. You don't have to worry about the high-end battle strength. When the time comes, you can contact the royal family and gain some strength. In this way, you really want to overthrow Gus." Princess Carol's breathing became even more rapid. Clearly she was tempted. Even though the possibility of that happening was still very small, it was still possible. However, she did not let it go to her head. Instead, she frowned and asked, "Why are you helping me? Why are you interfering in the battle for the throne of Jianghu country? What do you, or should I say, what do you want?" Leng Shiqi raised a finger and said, "First, you must give me the Gu King." Princess Carol nodded without hesitation. The Gu King was very precious, but Sang Hetong's Gu refinement technique and the 10,000 Gu spirit devouring technique were more important to her. Leng Shiqi raised a second finger. "From now on, I will send people to collect some Gu worms from you every once in a while." Princess Carol understood that the other party wanted to use her to nurture Gu worms. However, this matter was going with the flow, so she agreed. Finally, Leng Shiqi looked deeply at Princess Carol and said meaningfully, "After you successfully ascend the throne, you need to join our organization." Hearing this, Princess Carol's eyes widened slightly. She understood everything. It turned out that the other party did not really want to help her ascend the throne, but wanted to use her to indirectly control the entire Jianghu country. What great ambition. She even thought that even if she really became the king in the future, she might be secretly controlled by the other party. Leng Shiqi saw through her thoughts and said, "Princess Carol, don't worry. Our organization is not a sect, but a loose one. Everyone gathered together for mutual benefits. We won't restrict Princess Carol in any way, nor do we want to plot against Jianghu country. We just want a place to live. We will help you take revenge and ascend the throne, and you will provide us with a place to live. Speaking of which, Princess Carol is the one who benefits. And the things in this mustard seed bag are my sincerity." Princess Carol closed her eyes, seemingly hesitating. Leng Shiqi was not in a hurry. He stood at the side and waited quietly. After about a quarter of an hour, Princess Carol's eyes suddenly opened. Her eyes were filled with determination. She only said one word, "Okay." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi smiled and said, "Princess Carol made a very correct decision." Princess Carol suddenly seemed to have matured a lot. She raised her hand and released a Gu worm. It was the Gu King. "This is what I promised to give you." Leng Shiqi put away the Gu King with a smile. "Your Highness, the throne is not something that can be achieved overnight. We all need to slowly accumulate strength. Therefore, in the next few years, you must lay low and secretly cultivate your forces. That is the way to go." Leng Shiqi did not want Princess Carol to expose herself in her eagerness to take revenge, so he specially reminded her. After that, they set up their contact signs and went their separate ways. The reason why Leng Shiqi would help Princess Carol take back the throne was not empty talk, it was really possible. Sang Hetong had already planted a mind-controlling Gu in Chu Li, Sang Hetong was dead, so Chu Li became an important trump card in Leng Shiqi's hands. In terms of battle strength, he also had Tu Deng. Moreover, he could mobilize the assassins of the Blood Garment Pavilion. Presumably, the Blood Garment Pavilion was also very interested in secretly controlling Zhulu country. Of course, the most important thing was Princess Carol's identity. Even if Princess Carol were to openly seize the throne, the Sky Origin Stage experts of the Hall of Worship wouldn't interfere. That way they wouldn't have to deal with the most troublesome force. Moreover, Leng Shiqi had tentatively scheduled this matter for a few years later. By then, his strength and influence would not be weak, and Zhulu country would be his target. Chapter 394. The next day, Yu Ruifeng brought Leng Shiqi and a few Dark Thunder Guards into the palace and finally began their purpose for coming to Zhu Road country, which was to hold them accountable. Actually, at this time, it wasn't that important to hold them accountable because everyone knew the truth of the matter. All of this was done by Sang and Tong behind the scenes. Therefore, this accountability became a formality. In the end, Zhu Road country paid a considerable amount of resources and left the matter unsettled. For Yu Ruifeng, although Gus, who was in the pro-war faction, ascended to the throne, Zhu Road country had lost a large number of experts and imperial guards. In the next few years, it would be impossible for them to cause any more trouble. At least he could answer to the higher-ups. After that, Leng Shiqi followed Yu Ruifeng on the journey back to West Desolate Province. When they came, there were more than 20 people, but when they returned, there were only 6 left. Therefore, their speed was even faster and they only took 9 days to return to West Desolate City. As soon as they returned to West Desolate City, Yu Ruifeng plunged into busy matters. They had to carefully consider and report the information of their trip to Zhu Road country. In addition, in the month that Yu Ruifeng left, there was a thick pile of official documents piled up in West Desolate Province. It was enough to keep him busy for a while. Leng Shiqi and Guan Feihong rested in West Desolate City for a day and prepared to return to Lanqi City. Before leaving, he specially went to say goodbye to Yu Ruifeng, who knew that Yu Ruifeng would make a decision that surprised Leng Shiqi. He actually wanted Leng Shiqi to be the Great Supervisor of the North County. And the current Great Supervisor, Duan Chun, planned to be transferred to the South County to fill the vacancy of Yuan Song. This matter was of course a good thing for Leng Shiqi, but he still had a trace of worry in his heart. That was, why did Yu Ruifeng do this? If it was to win him over, he had already given him 10% of the cultivation resources in the Gu God sect. Now, not only did he give him resources, but he also wanted to give him an official position. This was a bit too solicitous. Yu Ruifeng was a dignified inspector, yet he was fawning over Leng Shiqi. This made Leng Shiqi suspicious, so he said modestly, "How could this humble servant be qualified to assume the position of Great Inspector?" Yu Ruifeng explained, "During this mission in Zhulu country, the elites of the Dark Thunder Guard suffered heavy losses. The South Region's Great Supervisor Yuan Song has died. However, the current inspectors in South County were either too inexperienced or did not have enough cultivation, so it was best to transfer a senior inspector over. Not long ago you destroyed the Profound Yang sect so you can be said to be famous in the North region. Moreover, you are now at the Spirit Aperture Realm middle stage. With your ability, I believe you can suppress the North region. However, the other inspectors in the North County will not easily submit to me," Leng Shiqi said hesitantly. Yu Ruifeng said meaningfully, "That's up to you. Just don't make a big deal out of it." With this, Leng Shiqi smiled in his heart. He cupped his hands and said, "Since Sir trusts this humble servant so much, then this humble servant will accept this position. However, this humble servant has a small request, please allow it." "Chem? Let's hear it." "It's like this. My lord, you've seen how this lowly one obtained his cultivation. This humble servant's cultivation is not very stable right now, so I want to go into seclusion for a while to consolidate my cultivation." Yu Ruifeng lowered his eyes. After thinking for a while, he said, "Okay, I'll give you 3 months at most." "Thank you, sir, for your understanding." A few days later, Leng Shiqi and Guan Feihong finally returned to Lanqi City's Dark Thunder Manor after more than a month. When they stepped into Dark Thunder Manor, Wei Guan, who had been promoted to Dark Thunder Guard, saw them immediately. Crush. The books in Wei Guan's hands all fell to the ground. He ran over in surprise and shouted, Sir, you're finally back." When Leng Shiqi saw Wei Guan's surprise and relief, his heart tightened. He asked, "Did something happen in Dark Thunder Manor?" Wei Guan opened his mouth, but his expression dimmed. He didn't know what to say. At this moment, Qian Ming, Qiu Qing and Xiao Qian heard the commotion and rushed over. They all had gloomy expressions. When they saw Leng Shiqi they finally dispersed. Something really did happen. However, Leng Shiqi was still very calm. He said, "Let's go to the meeting hall and talk." After they took a seat in the meeting hall, Leng Shiqi directly asked Qiu Qing. He was the most qualified person here. "Tell me what happened." Qiu Qing muttered to himself as if he was organizing his words. "Sir, not long after you left, Yu Zimo came looking for us." "Yu Zimo? Who's that?" This name sounded familiar to Leng Shiqi, but he definitely didn't know this person. Yu Zimo is also a supervisor. The area he is in charge of is adjacent to ours. After he arrived, he immediately asked us to give him half of our monthly tribute. Leng Shiqi's expression sank. His spirit aperture realm 5th layer cultivation was uncontrollably activated, and a formless spirit pressure was released. The others were surprised and delighted. When Leng Shiqi was in the spirit pulse realm, he was able to fight against spirit aperture realm experts. Now that he had broken through to the spirit aperture realm, Yu Zimo was no longer a threat. Leng Shiqi's mind was spinning rapidly, but he let Qiu Qing continue. "Of course we didn't want to, but we don't know where Yu Zimo found." At this point, Qiu Qing's eyes flickered. He was a bit hesitant, but he still said, "He found evidence that Sir dealt with Gong Sun Bing and his cronies." When Qiu Qing said this, Leng Shiqi could more or less guess the ins and outs of the matter. That Yu Zimo was simply jealous of the windfall he made around Lanqi City, but Yu Zimo didn't have the ability to imitate Leng Shiqi's methods. Thus, he wanted to take advantage of Lanqi City's absence to interfere. When Leng Shiqi got rid of Gong Sun Bing and his cronies, he did leave behind some traces that couldn't be investigated. He didn't expect that Yu Zimo, the supervisor, would specifically investigate this matter. In other words, Yu Zimo had something on Leng Shiqi and used it to blackmail him and take away the tribute. However, Leng Shiqi thought deeper. Where did Yu Zimo get the guts to do this? It wasn't that Leng Shiqi thought too highly of himself. When he left the West Desolate Province, that was when his reputation was at its peak. Moreover, his public smuggling was tacitly approved by Yu Ruifeng. As a supervisor, Yu Zimo came looking for trouble right after Leng Shiqi left. Wasn't he afraid that Leng Shiqi would come back for revenge? Obviously, there must be someone behind Yu Zimo who was supporting him. That person was undoubtedly Duan Chun. Chapter 395. Duan Chun, the supervisor of the North County, had joined forces with Yu Zimo to cause trouble, which gave Leng Shiqi a headache. At this moment, Leng Shiqi made a sound of surprise. Only now did he realize that Qin Jianchen was not here. He asked, "Where is Qin Jianchen?" Qiu Qing and the others paused for a moment. Qian Ming continued, "Sir, when Yu Zimo first came, Qin Jianchen fought with him, but he was seriously injured by Yu Zimo. During this time he was in seclusion to recuperate, so he did not come to welcome you." Leng Shiqi's face turned completely cold. Traces of killing intent filled the air, causing the temperature of the meeting hall to drop. Qian Ming saw this and said in a low voice, "Sir, we should not act rashly. After all, Yu Zimo has something on us." Leng Shiqi retracted his killing intent, and a cold smile appeared on his face. "Yu Zimo Duan Chun. Pass down the order." They immediately straightened their bodies and waited for Leng Shiqi to give the order. However, Leng Shiqi said, "Yu Zimo should know about my return soon. He must be waiting for me to make a move. From today onwards, have all the Dark Thunder Guards withdraw. Do not let anyone have anything on us. If Yu Zimo comes to ask for resources next time, do not fight. Give him as much as he wants." What? They were shocked when they heard this. They did not know what Leng Shiqi was trying to do. Guan Feihong, on the other hand, rolled his eyes and laughed sinisterly. He said, "This subordinate obeys." Leng Shiqi stood up and said, "From now on, I will go into seclusion. No matter what happens, I will endure it. Whatever they swallow now, I will make them spit it out twice as much in the future." As soon as he finished speaking, Leng Shiqi took a step forward, and his figure instantly vanished on the spot like a ghost. Qiu Qing and Qiu Qian were a little confused. Qian Ming lowered his head thoughtfully. Guan Feihong said, "Do you think that Yu Zimo, a supervisor, dares to mess with us? With Sir's strength, it would not be difficult to quietly get rid of Yu Zimo. However, Sir's real opponent is the person behind Yu Zimo. Since Sir has already given the order, the most important thing for us to do while Sir is in seclusion is to endure." Qiu Qian and Guan Feihong looked at each other and then nodded solemnly. After Leng Shiqi returned to his room, he released dozens of goo worms to hide around his room to protect him. He waved his hand, sprinkled 500 mid-grade spirit stones into the formation's formation. And in an instant, rich heaven and earth spiritual chi quickly gather, the rich heaven and earth spiritual energy quickly, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth quickly, the entire room was filled the room. That was a mist with smoke completely condensed. Then Leng Shiqi sat cross-legged in the center of the yin and yang spirit gathering array and absorbed the spiritual energy into his body. His had come too quickly. Now what he needed most was to do his best to consolidate it. Then he divided his consciousness into two. While purifying his spiritual energy, he was also constantly deducing and fusing spiritual skills. Finally, Leng Shiqi raised his head and swallowed a fasting pill he found in the mulberry tree. From then on he entered a state of seclusion. 11 days later Leng Shiqi opened his eyes. At the same time his eyes became brighter and brighter. He had also removed the soul-splitting technique. At this moment his spiritual energy had become much purer. The reason he stopped was because the system's upgrade had been completed. Leng Shiqi opened the system with some anticipation. First of all, the system gave him the first impression that the interface was much more refined. He habitually opened his own information first. Name, Leng Shiqi Lu Xingji, Cultivation, Spirit Aperture Realm Level 5 Status, Peak Bloodline, Dark Shadow Clan Unknown Management Authority, 37% System Energy, 13%. System Coins, 1382. Leng Shiqi raised his eyebrows. There was an additional entry for System Energy in his information. His eyes narrowed as if he had thought of something. Then he took out a level 4 spiritual sword from his mustard seed bracelet and sold it to the system. He received 168 system coins. Leng Shiqi's eyes were fixed on the words, System Energy. Sure enough, after he sold the level 4 spiritual sword, the 13% behind the words suddenly flashed. However, the number did not change. At the same time, an inexplicable, undetectable energy appeared in his body. The energy was very weak, but it gave people a very strange feeling. It wasn't spiritual power, nor was it demonic aura or baleful aura. Leng Shiqi couldn't tell what kind of feeling it was because it disappeared in a flash. Leng Shiqi's eyes flashed. He sold the astral wood spiritual spear he used before to the system. Then he immediately closed his eyes and carefully sensed it. Sure enough, a strand of that strange energy appeared in his body again. Leng Shiqi now understood that the system energy was the energy that the system obtained after he sold the items to the system. Because he had 37% of the system's authority, a small part of the energy was transferred to him. Although he still didn't know what that power was, he was sure that it was something extraordinary. After figuring this out, Leng Shiqi opened his bag, map and system store. There were 6 more empty slots in his bag, which was a small surprise. The map system did not change much, but there was an additional marking function. As for the number of items in the system store, it increased from 4 to 8. After checking these subsidiary systems, Leng Shiqi looked forward to seeing if there were any changes to the lottery system. After he broke through to the spiritual pulse realm, there were no new lottery options. This time there should be. He clicked on the lottery page and there was finally an option called Advanced Lottery, which made Leng Shiqi secretly happy. However, when he saw the system coins required for the Advanced Lottery, he was a little shocked. The Advanced Lottery actually required 1,000 system coins. This was the same price as the Unlimited Lottery. However, Leng Shiqi immediately felt that the advantage of the Advanced Lottery over the Unlimited Lottery was that it was more stable. When he had the Unlimited Lottery before, he had gotten the beginner and intermediate prizes several times. It was really a loss. The Advanced Lottery would definitely give him the advanced prizes. Although he could not win a lot with a small amount, he would not lose money. Leng Shiqi wanted to try it twice, but before that he had something more important to do, which was to activate another subsidiary system. System upgrade successful. Administrator, please select the system you want to activate. Chapter 396. When Leng Shiqi saw the system prompt, he swiped down and 3 alternative subsidiary systems suddenly appeared in front of him. They were Mission System, Pet System and Equipment System. Among these 3 subsidiary systems, Leng Shiqi could only choose to open one of them, so he began to carefully examine the 3 subsidiary systems. First was the Mission System. Missions were easy to understand. They were nothing more than missions issued by the system. After completing them, he would receive a certain reward. Leng Shiqi looked carefully and found that the mission system also contained many subcategories such as main missions, daily missions, random missions, travel missions, treasure hunting missions, and so on. It seemed to be quite rich. However, after thinking for a while, Leng Shiqi directly excluded the mission system. There were two reasons. First, the system's missions were more or less mandatory. If the mission was just to his liking, it would be fine. But if the mission issued by the system was not something he wanted to do, or if it was not his style of doing things, he would feel very uncomfortable. Of course, the most important thing was that he did not want to be bound by the system's missions. The second reason was that he was traumatized by it. Leng Shiqi remembered very clearly that when he was still on Blood Mist Island, he worked hard to complete the mission. What did he get in the end? A high-grade Mao pill. The heart-wrenching feeling at that time was still imprinted in his heart, leaving him with lingering fear. Therefore, he did not consider the mission system for the time being. Then he began to study the pet system. The pet system also had many small functions such as pet summoning, pet strengthening, pet upgrading, pet skills, pet equipment. There was a whole bunch of them. It was like a game to cheat money. Leng Shiqi looked at these words as if he could see the system coins flowing out. He did not need to think at all to know that each of these small functions must require a lot of system coins. In fact, Leng Shiqi was a little tempted because he now had something similar to a pet, the Gu King. He now only knew that the Gu King needed to devour all kinds of rare resources to advance. As for other methods to cultivate the Gu King, he did not know. Even Princess Carol, who cultivated the Gu King, did not know. If he opened the pet system, he could use the system's functions to cultivate the Gu King. Presumably, he would soon have a good combat power. For example, the purple feather on the Blood Mist Island was very convenient to use. Therefore, the pet system was on the Leng Shiqi's list of options. However, whether or not he would choose it would depend on the equipment system. Leng Shiqi then looked at the equipment system. This equipment system was a little different from what Leng Shiqi had imagined. At first, he thought that it was just a system that provided attributes and characteristics when placed in the grid. However, after looking at it for a while, he realized that it was actually a system for strengthening and upgrading equipment. Among the functions there were equipment strengthening, equipment refining, equipment recasting, equipment embedding, and so on. Seeing these words, Leng Shiqi's eyes lit up. Spiritual weapons could be said to be the most direct way to increase one's strength. He had several level 5 spiritual weapons on him. He even had the Devil Advent Battle Saber, a 6th grade spiritual weapon, and the Divine Gu Ring, a rank 7 treasure. If he activated the equipment system, some of the spiritual equipment that he usually used would be greatly enhanced. The Devil's Arrival Battle Saber might even be upgraded to Tier 7. He was really tempted. However, after looking at the pet system and the equipment system, he felt that the system was trying to trick him into topping up money. Whether it was the pet system or the equipment system, it obviously cost a lot of system coins. However, it could indeed increase his strength. The saying that one could become stronger by topping up money had become true. Leng Shiqi was not afraid of topping up money. As his strength and influence increased, he would be able to obtain more and more resources. It was not a big deal to spend all of it on the system. What he was most conflicted about now was which system to choose. To be honest, he wanted both systems, but he had to give up on one. The pet system was an extra help. The equipment system could strengthen weapons. Leng Shiqi fell into deep thought. After half an hour, Leng Shiqi gritted his teeth and made a decision. He decided to choose the pet system. There were 3 reasons. First of all, Leng Shiqi did not have a high demand for spiritual equipment. He had just obtained the Devil's Arrival Battle Saber and the Divine Gu Ring from the resources of the Gu God sect. These were enough for him to use for a long time. Secondly, no matter how powerful his spiritual equipment was, he was still one person. As the saying goes, 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. There were many times when he could not split himself. If he could cultivate a powerful pet, it could help him do a lot of things that others did not know about. Thirdly, after activating the pet system, Leng Shiqi did not only cultivate the Gu King as a pet. As long as he was willing to spend money, he could even cultivate several powerful pets at the same time. These were things that the spiritual equipment could not bring him. Therefore he made this decision. Then he said, "I choose the pet system." Pet system activated. Open the pet space. Leng Shiqi saw a stream of light flash on the system interface. There was an additional pet option. He immediately opened the pet system and found that there were only 3 small functions: pet summon, pet bind, and pet upgrade. As for the rest, he was afraid that he would have to wait for the system to be upgraded again. Leng Shiqi first opened the pet summon page. There were two ways to summon pets: normal summon and advanced summon. Normal summon cost 500 system coins per summon. The potential of the summoned pet would be between white, green, and blue. Advanced summon cost 3000 system coins per summon. The potential of the pet would be between blue, purple, and gold. In other words, the worst pet that could be drawn from the advanced lottery would be a blue pet. Leng Shiqi's mouth twitched when he saw the price of the pet summon. The system was really cheating him. Fortunately, he already had the Goo King and did not need to summon pets. Therefore he clicked on the pet bind page. Now Leng Shiqi could only have one pet at most. He immediately summoned the Goo King and a system prompt appeared in front of his eyes. Discovered a purple pet. Bind? Leng Shiqi was a little surprised when he heard that the Goo King's potential was purple. Although the Goo King had the word king, it was only cultivated from many ordinary goo worms. Moreover, the cultivation method was not very good. Leng Shiqi was slightly happy that it had a purple quality. This helped him save thousands of system coins. He immediately said, yes. Immediately, Leng Shiqi suddenly felt an inexplicable connection between himself and the Goo King. He could order the Goo King to do anything at any time. Even if he asked it to self-destruct now, it would not hesitate at all. Finally, Leng Shiqi looked at the pet upgrade option that he cared about the most. The reason why he chose the pet system was that he wanted to increase the Goo King's strength in a short period of time so that it could help him do something. The pet upgrade page was very simple. It showed that the Goo King's current level was a rank 1 monster. There were two ways to upgrade a pet. One was to feed it experience pills. There would be a special slot in the system shop for experience pills. The other was to follow the master and cultivate. When the master cultivated, the pet would share 10% of the experience. Of course, for Leng Shiqi there was a third way. That was to let it eat all kinds of rare materials. Leng Shiqi thought about it and decided to use all three methods. Chapter 397. Leng Shiqi logged out of the system and took out all the resources he didn't need. They almost filled up his room. Then he divided the resources into 3 parts. He kept the most precious high-grade resources and prepared to give them to 9 Leave. He didn't forget that he still owed half of the resources to Shenyang's sect. Originally, he planned to give 9 Leave the resources of the big families in several cities. Although the quality of these people's resources was a bit low, there were a lot of them. However, Duan Chun and Yu Zimo intervened halfway, so there weren't many resources left. So Leng Shiqi had to keep some for himself. The rest was divided into 2 parts. One part was to be sold to the system, and the other part was to be eaten by the Goo King. Leng Shiqi waved his hand, and the large pile of resources in front of him suddenly disappeared into the world, turning into more than 6,000 system coins. Combined with what he had before, he now had 8,000 system coins. He opened the shop system again. After opening the pet system, the shop system had also changed. There were 2 sub-options, random and pet. Leng Shiqi clicked on the pet shop. There were 2 boxes, selling beginner pet experience pills and intermediate pet experience pills. The prices were 100 system coins and 300 system coins, respectively. Leng Shiqi frowned. He had quite a lot of system coins, but it was still far from enough to cover all his expenses. This was because he also wanted to open the map system. Just this alone would cost him 10,000 system coins. In addition, he had just activated the advanced lottery option, and he really wanted to try it out a few times. In this way he was really a little stretched. Leng Shiqi hesitated for a moment, then bought 10 beginner pet experience pills to see the effects. He fed 1 beginner pet experience pill to the Goo King. Then the Goo King's body flashed and its aura soared, instantly reaching the limit of a rank 1 monster. Leng Shiqi was delighted. It seemed that the beginner pet experience pill was quite effective. He fed it another pill and the Goo King's body began to swell. Its body grew 2 or 3 times bigger and it was already the size of a thumb. And it was already a second-ranked demonic beast. 2 basic pet experience pills had allowed the Goo King to advance to tier 2. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but smile. However, he couldn't smile after that. This was because after the Goo King was promoted to stage 2, the effect of the beginner pet experience pill was greatly reduced. Even after eating the remaining 8 pills, he still didn't advance. Leng Shiqi had no choice but to feed it the resources that he had prepared. After swallowing 30 to 40% of the resources, the Goo King finally showed signs of advancement. However, the Goo King had also fallen into a deep slumber because of this. It seemed that the qualitative change between rank 2 and rank 3 still required a slow evolution. Leng Shiqi placed the Gu King into the pet slot. Then he looked at the remaining 7,000 system coins and decided to try the advanced lottery draw twice. As for the remaining 5,000 gold coins, he would save them for the time being. Not only would he be able to prepare for the opening of the entire map, but he would also be able to purchase items from the random shop at any time. He clicked on the lottery page and immediately clicked on the advanced lottery draw twice. A dazzling light flashed and two things appeared in front of him. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, Supreme Grade Sharp Spear Talisman. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the advanced prize, Soaring Feather. Leng Shiqi picked up the two items. The Supreme Grade Sharp Spear Talisman was a piece of purple gold talisman paper. It was a kind of item that strengthened spiritual weapons. After using it, it could greatly increase the sharpness of the spiritual weapon. He immediately took out the Inked Jade Sword and the Demon's Arrival Battle Saber. These were the two spiritual weapons that he used most frequently and were also the strongest. He looked at the Inked Jade Sword and then looked at the Demon's Arrival Battle Saber. After thinking for a while, he still felt that the Supreme Grade Sharp Spear Talisman was more suitable for the Inked Jade Sword. The Demon's Arrival Battle Saber was already an upper grade stage 6 spiritual weapon. Even if he used the Supreme Grade Sharp Spear Talisman on it, it wouldn't be able to advance to stage 7. At most, it would just be icing on the cake. This was because spiritual weapons above stage 7 didn't just need to be sharp and tough. They also needed to have their spirituality activated. Therefore, it was more suitable to use it on the Inked Jade Sword. Leng Shiqi placed the Supreme Grade Sharp Spear Talisman on the Inked Jade Sword. In a split second, the Inked Jade Sword released rays of purple and gold light. The sword body also started to tremble in his hand. Traces of sharpness constantly assaulted his face, causing Leng Shiqi to feel waves of pain on his face. After a moment, the Inked Jade Sword suddenly screeched. The light on the sword body suddenly converged. The Inked Jade Sword actually advanced to stage 6 spiritual weapon. Leng Shiqi was surprised and happy. He held the Inked Jade Sword and felt the sharpness on it. He couldn't help but smile. Although he didn't choose to activate the equipment system, he used the lottery to advance the Inked Jade Sword. Now he had two stage 6 spiritual weapons. This was something that normal spirit aperture stage cultivators wouldn't even dare to think about. He didn't have to worry about spiritual weapons for a short period of time. He was also a little glad that he chose the pet system. Putting away the Inked Jade Sword, Leng Shiqi picked up the pure white feather beside it. This was the Soaring Feather. It was a tool used to strengthen wings. Unfortunately, Leng Shiqi didn't have wings. Although he had some soaring sky goo that could allow him to stay in the air for a short period of time, they weren't real wings. Thus, he could only leave the soaring feather to collect dust. In the end, the only thing Leng Shiqi had to do was to enter the infinite lottery again. Every time the system was upgraded, it would give Leng Shiqi a free unlimited lottery draw. However, for the current Leng Shiqi, he wasn't looking forward to the unlimited lottery draw. After all, he had suffered a lot in it. Thus, Leng Shiqi casually clicked on the infinite lottery. The system prompt appeared. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the intermediate prize, Desert Golden Sand. Seeing that he only got the intermediate prize, Leng Shiqi thought to himself, as expected. As for the Desert Golden Sand, it was a pretty good refining material. He directly took it to the bottom of his chest. At this point, after the system upgraded, he had done all the things he needed to do. He had also done all the research he needed to do. After Leng Shiqi tidied up, he once again entered a state of cultivation. However, what he didn't know was that in these 2 days, Yuzimo brought people to Dark Thunder Manor in Lanqi City. Yuzimo had long known that Leng Shiqi had returned. He thought that Leng Shiqi would be furious and go to settle accounts with him. He even prepared how to deal with it and how to suppress Leng Shiqi. But what Yuzimo didn't expect was that he didn't see Leng Shiqi's shadow even after waiting for several days in his own territory. He asked around and found out that Leng Shiqi actually went into closed-door cultivation after returning. This made Yuzimo a little surprised and doubtful. Yuzimo had swallowed half of Leng Shiqi's resources and even injured Qin Jianchen. How could Leng Shiqi tolerate this? As far as he knew, Leng Shiqi was absolutely not like this. Gradually, it was Yuzimo who couldn't sit still anymore. He hesitated for a day or two before deciding to personally come to Lanqi City to test things out. Chapter 398. Yuzimo led a few Dark Lightning emissaries into Dark Thunder Manor, waving his hand to summon a few dark lightning guards. He narrowed his eyes and asked, "Where's your supervisor, Lu Xingji? Call him out." Yuzimo's attitude was extremely arrogant. He was on the same level as Leng Shiqi, but he had crossed the jurisdiction of Dark Thunder Manor without permission. He had even specifically asked to see Leng Shiqi. This kind of behavior could be said to be condescending. And the reason he did this was to provoke Leng Shiqi. It would be best if Leng Shiqi could take the initiative to attack him. Then he would have another weakness in his hands, and he would definitely be able to control Leng Shiqi. However, the dark lightning guard in front of him said expressionlessly, "Lord Lu is in seclusion and is not receiving guests." This dark lightning guard was actually an assassin from Bloodcloak Pavilion, so he naturally wouldn't give Yuzimo any face. Seclusion? What seclusion? Call him out. Yuzimo directly roared. At this time, Guan Feihong, Qiao Qian and the other dark lightning emissaries heard the commotion and hurried over. Guan Feihong revealed a kind smile, stepped forward and cupped his fists. "So Lord Yu has arrived. Please come in." Yuzimo stared at Guan Feihong. He hadn't seen Guan Feihong the last time he came. He heard that Leng Shiqi had brought Guan Feihong to Zhulu. Now it seemed that this Guan Feihong wasn't easy to deal with. Yuzimo said sternly, "You're not worthy to speak to me. Call Lu Xingji out." Lord Lu is already in seclusion. He said that everything in Dark Thunder Manor will be managed by me, so this one can more or less make some decisions. "You can really make decisions?" Yuzimo's eyes flashed with a suspicious look. "This one can make decisions on ordinary matters." Guan Feihong didn't say too much. Yuzimo snorted. "What I'm about to say isn't ordinary. Since you can't make decisions, you should call Lu Xingji out." Guan Feihong's smile did not diminish in the slightest. He said, "Sir also said that if something big happens we should put it aside first and deal with it after he comes out of seclusion." Yuzimo's face turned gloomy. "You mean Lu Xingji won't come out to see me? Sir Yu, please don't make things difficult for me." Guan Feihong's smile became even more amiable. But Yuzimo said, "What if I insist on making things difficult for you?" Guan Feihong smiled and said, "Lord Yu must be joking. Why would Lord Yu bother with us subordinates?" The more Yuzimo talked with Guan Feihong, the more he felt that the man was slippery. What Guan Feihong meant was that if he made things difficult for the Dark Lightning envoys he would lose his status. However, if he didn't make things difficult for them, it would be equivalent to slapping his own face. Suddenly Yuzimo laughed. "Haha, this envoy was just joking with you all. Why take it so seriously?" "Ha!" Qiu Cheng and the others also laughed, but their laughter was extremely awkward. Guan Feihong waved his arm and said, "Please come inside for a chat." Yuzimo didn't say anything and went straight into the meeting hall. When he saw the jade chair in the main seat, he sneered in his heart. He secretly thought that Leng Shiqi really knew how to enjoy life. Then he sat down on the jade chair with a look of enjoyment on his face. Guan Feihong was still able to maintain his smile, but the faces of the others fell. Yuzimo patted the chair and said, "Oh, this chair is really good. Only someone as rich as Lord Lu can afford to sit on it." Speaking of this, Yuzimo suddenly changed the topic. "Unfortunately, this envoy's purse is shy. Someone come." At this time, Guan Feihong suddenly shouted. Yuzimo was slightly surprised and secretly became vigilant. He thought that Leng Shiqi had set a trap. But then, a group of people carried dozens of large wooden boxes to the door of the meeting hall. Guan Feihong pointed to the boxes and said, "Lord Yu, these things are the offerings that the various great clans have handed over this month. Half of them are here. Please accept them." Yuzimo didn't show any expression of joy. Instead, his expression became serious. His purpose in coming here was to anger Leng Shiqi, including these Dark Lightning envoys. But now, not only was the other party not angry, but they were also offering up so many resources. He immediately thought of Leng Shiqi's intention, and that was to delay. But Yuzimo didn't want to delay. He looked at the boxes and said angrily, "This is just a little bit of resources? Are you trying to fool me? Lord Yu, half of the offerings are here. If Lord Yu doesn't believe me, I can have someone bring the accounts." "Half?" Yuzimo smiled darkly. "Who told you that I wanted half? From today onwards you will give me 70%. "What? 70%? Qiao Qian and the others were shocked and angry. Even Guan Feihong's smile faded a little. He could see that Yuzimo had come here to cause trouble. His goal was to force Leng Shiqi out. Guan Feihong even guessed that all of this was supported by Duan Chun. Although Leng Shiqi had told him to give Yuzimo as much as he wanted before he went into seclusion, This time, he had given him 70%. What about next time? What about next time? In the end, if Yuzimo took it all, would they give it to him or not? Just as Guan Feihong didn't know how to respond, a voice sounded. Don't even think about it. The voice sounded very calm, but it was filled with an unquestionable tone. Everyone looked at the door. At this time, there stood a figure dressed in black holding a long sword. It was Qin Jianshan. And his cultivation was at the Spirit Aperture Realm. Qin Jianshan's appearance at the Spirit Aperture Realm was beyond everyone's expectations. Even Guan Feihong and the other Dark Lightning envoys were shocked. Qin Jianshan had been seriously injured by Yuzimo some time ago and should still be recovering. How could he have broken through to the Spirit Aperture Realm? Of course, the most shocked person was Yuzimo. He remembered clearly that when he first came here, Qin Jianshan was the only one who had stopped him. At first, Yuzimo didn't put Qin Jianshan, who was at the 9th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm, in his eyes. After all, he was at the 6th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm. But Qin Jianshan's sword was too fast. It was so fast that it was strange. It was so fast that Yuzimo felt threatened. Therefore, Yuzimo had no choice but to take it seriously, which was why he had seriously injured Qin Jianshan. However, in just a month, Qin Jianshan had not only recovered from his injuries, but his cultivation had also broken through to the Spirit Aperture Realm. How could Yuzimo not be shocked? Qin Jianshan gripped the hilt of his sword tightly and said, "Thanks to you, my cultivation has improved. I don't know if you can still seriously injure me today." Chapter 399. Yuzimo opened his mouth to say something, but Qin Jianshan's sword had already arrived. The others didn't even see when Qin Jianshan's sword had struck. They only saw the black sword light, which was as thin as a strand of hair, arrive in front of Yuzimo. Yuzimo hastily used his spirit armor, and at the same time, a sword appeared in his hand. The sword was covered in blue light, and a blue sword light was slashed out like a waterfall. However, Qin Jianshan's sword easily pierced through the blue waterfall and tore apart Yuzimo's spirit armor. When the tip of the sword was about to pierce Yuzimo's heart, he hurriedly punched out. A pair of gloves covered his fist, which bloomed with a dense spirit light, greeted the attack. With an ear-piercing sound of collision, Yuzimo's body knocked over the jade chair, and he was forced back 8 steps. Qin Jianshan, on the other hand, was only forced back 3 steps. Yuzimo's fists were still trembling slightly, and 2 cracks had appeared on his gloves. His heart was filled with shock, anger, hatred, and even a bit of shame and annoyance. He was at the 6th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm, but he had actually lost to Qin Jianshan, who had just entered the Spirit Aperture Realm. Even if Qin Jianshan's attack had been very sudden, it shouldn't have been like this. This could only mean that Qin Jianshan's strength was very strong. However, for Qin Jianshan, being able to force Yuzimo back a few steps was already his limit. Moreover, he could only use that sword technique a few times. If he were to fight Yuzimo head-on, he didn't have much confidence. However, Qin Jianshan still stared coldly at Yuzimo, as if he would fight him to the death. At this time, the 3 Dark Lightning envoys who had followed Yuzimo finally reacted, but Qian Ming, Qiu Cheng, and the others stepped forward to block them. The atmosphere in the meeting room instantly became tense. Although Yuzimo was surprised in his heart, he thought about it for a moment and became happy instead. He immediately shouted, "How bold of you! You dare to offend your superior? Where are the rules of the Dark Lightning Guard?" "Gu Xiaoping. I am here." A Dark Lightning envoy behind Yuzimo replied. "Offending your superior? What is the punishment?" "According to the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards, cripple his cultivation and send him to the death cell." Yuzimo sneered as he looked at Qin Jianshan. "Last time, I didn't pursue the matter because you were seriously injured. This time you actually dared to attack me in public. You really haven't changed." Guan Feihong also felt that Qin Jianshan was being a little impulsive, which gave Yuzimo another opportunity to use against him. However, he didn't blame Qin Jianshan. When Leng Shiqi explained the matter, Qin Jianshan wasn't present. Everyone knew that he was recuperating, so they didn't disturb him. Moreover, Qin Jianshan was now in the Spirit Aperture Realm. If he was in the Blood Cloak Pavilion, he would be a silver-striped Blood Cloak assassin, which was 1 level higher than Guan Feihong. Even if Qin Jianshan wanted to blame him, he had no right to do so. Qin Jianshan did not answer Yuzimo, but the fighting spirit in his eyes grew stronger and stronger. Yuzimo also frowned. He had fought with Qin Jianshan twice, and he knew very well that if he wanted to take down Qin Jianshan, he would have to use his trump card. If he was not careful, he might end up getting injured. But if he didn't make a move, wouldn't he lose face by saying such big words? The Dark Thunder Manor of Mishchi City was really strange. With the old fox Guan Feihong and the stubborn madman Qin Jianshan, he felt a bit of a headache. 70%. 70% it is. At this time Guan Feihong shouted. He said to Yu Zimo, Lord Yu, I will send someone to deliver 70% of the resources to your manor. Guan Feihong's timely words gave Yu Zimo a way out of the embarrassing situation. He nodded his head with satisfaction and said, Well, it seems you have a clear view of the situation. In that case, I will not pursue Qin Jianshan's offense. I still have important matters to attend to, so I will take my leave. Alright, I will be back at this time next month. Ah. After Yu Zimo left Dark Thunder Manor with a smile, everyone's face was gloomy. Especially Qiao Qian and Qiu Cheng. They had never suffered such humiliation before. They only felt that their hearts were filled with unwillingness. Qin Jianshan, who had always been a man of few words, said at this time, I am still too weak. It was unknown whether he was saying this to himself or to everyone else. After he finished speaking, he strode away like a meteor. The remaining few people, except for Guan Feihong, secretly clenched their fists. After this, the entire Dark Thunder Manor of Mishchi City fell into silence. Apart from the tasks that needed to be completed, everyone threw themselves into cultivating crazily. Time passed in the blink of an eye. 3 months later, Leng Shiqi finally pushed open the door to his room. The biggest difference between the current Leng Shiqi and the one from 3 months ago was that he was much calmer. His eyes were as calm and tranquil as an ancient well, but under the surface of the water, it seemed to have the power to set off huge waves at any time. Leng Shiqi walked out of his room and saw the long-awaited sunlight. He couldn't help but squint his eyes for a while. Wei Guan, who had been waiting here, immediately ran over and bowed. Congratulations on coming out of seclusion, Lord. Leng Shiqi nodded lightly and said, Prepare some food for me first. Yes. Wei Guan left in a jog, while Leng Shiqi casually strolled around his courtyard. Speaking of which, he seemed to have never walked around his courtyard before. After walking around like this for a while, he felt comfortable all over. Not long after, Guan Feihong, Qin Jianshan, and the other 4 Dark Thunder envoys all came to the courtyard. Leng Shiqi saw that Qin Jianshan's cultivation was actually at the Spirit Aperture realm and couldn't help but be a little surprised. However, this surprise was immediately replaced by joy. Qin Jianshan's battle strength far exceeded that of other cultivators of the same level. Although he was only at the first level of the Spirit Aperture realm, he could definitely fight against a third-level cultivator. This could be considered a great help. Leng Shiqi scanned everyone and discovered that their cultivation had improved by quite a bit. Qiu Cheng and Chen Ming were both at the peak of the 6th level of the Spirit Aperture realm and could break through to the 7th level at any time. The one with the greatest improvement was still Qiao Qian. Leng Shiqi remembered that when he first came to Lanqi City, Qiao Qian had just broken through to the Spirit Aperture realm. Now, only half a year had passed and he was already at the 3rd level of the Spirit Aperture realm. With his youth and aptitude, he could indeed be called a genius. As for Leng Shiqi himself, after 3 months of closed-door cultivation, his cultivation was still at the 5th level of the Spirit Aperture realm. However, the spiritual energy in his body was abnormally dense and pure. Moreover, his strength was much stronger than 3 months ago. However, he didn't know how strong he was now, so he had to find someone to test it out. The few people first congratulated Leng Shiqi, then Guan Feihong began to talk about serious matters. He first talked about Yu Zimo's arrogance in the past 3 months, then said, Sir, in 2 days it will be time to submit the offerings. I'm afraid Yu Zimo will come again. When Leng Shiqi heard this, he muttered, just in time to practice. Qiu Cheng, go and send a message to Sir Yu Ruifeng. Chapter 400. 2 days later, the courtyard of Dark Thunder Manor was filled with hundreds of large chests, almost filling up the entire courtyard. Leng Shiqi and a few of his Dark Thunder guards were having tea in the meeting room. Leng Shiqi had been eating fasting pills for the past 3 months, so the taste in his mouth was bitter. Now that he had a full meal and had some tea, his heart was filled with satisfaction. However, the others were not as relaxed. They also knew that Leng Shiqi was already at the 5th level of the Spirit Aperture realm. Although they were shocked, they still couldn't feel happy. Leng Shiqi indeed had a high chance of beating Yu Zimo, but what about after that? Yu Zimo would definitely not let go of this and report it to Duan Chun, which would lead to even more trouble. So, How could they still be in the mood to drink tea? However, they all understood Leng Shiqi's temperament. Once he made a decision, no one could change it. Not long after, four people walked in from outside. Seeing how they walked in, those who didn't know would think that they were the masters of Dark Thunder Manor. Yuzimo looked around at the chests in the courtyard and couldn't help but grin. These were all his. He raised his head and walked into the meeting room. He subconsciously wanted to sit on the jade chair, but then he realized that there was already someone sitting there. The moment he saw Leng Shiqi, he was surprised and said, "Oh, isn't this Lord Lu?" He didn't get the news that Leng Shiqi had come out, but he could see that Leng Shiqi was already at the Spirit Aperture Realm. However, he couldn't determine which level of the Spirit Aperture Realm he was at, so he was really surprised. However, in his opinion, Leng Shiqi was only at the first level of the Spirit Aperture Realm. Leng Shiqi took a sip of tea, glanced at him and asked Guan Feihong, "Who is this guy?" Hearing this, Yuzimo's expression immediately changed. How could Leng Shiqi not know him? Yet Leng Shiqi was asking someone else. This was clearly not putting him in his eyes. Guan Feihong even stood up and introduced him to Leng Shiqi. "Sir, this is also the supervisor of the Dark Thunder Guards, Yuzimo, sir you?" Yuzimo coldly stared at Guan Feihong, but Guan Feihong did not care at all. "Yuzimo? Never heard of it." Leng Shiqi said softly. Even though his voice was soft, the weakest person present was at the Spirit Pulse realm. Everyone could hear him clearly. This time Yuzimo did not get angry. He could see that Leng Shiqi was trying to intimidate him. However, he had come prepared. Yuzimo sneered and said, "It is not easy to see Sir Lu. I have always wanted to see Sir Lu because I want to show you a few things." As he spoke, he took out a few thin booklets from his mustard seed bag and placed a small bundle on the table. Leng Shiqi only glanced at it and lost interest. It was definitely evidence of him getting rid of Gong Sunbing and his subordinates. "Sir Lu, are you not interested in the things inside?" Yuzimo saw that Leng Shiqi was not moved at all, so he said with a sinister smile, "AI." Suddenly Leng Shiqi let out a deep sigh. The sneer on Yuzimo's face became even stronger. Leng Shiqi said, "Some people think they are smart. They are being used as pawns by others, but they are still complacent. Some people are about to die, but they do not know. How pitiful." "Who are you talking about?" Of course, Yuzimo could hear that Leng Shiqi was mocking him, so he immediately shouted. However, he did not notice that at this time, Guan Feihong and the others began to silently retreat. Leng Shiqi turned his head and looked directly at Yuzimo. His eyes were as calm as water, but it was this calm gaze that made Yuzimo feel a sense of crisis. Immediately, Leng Shiqi pushed his palm forward. Suddenly, the heaven and earth spiritual chi went berserk, and a rich dark golden brilliance appeared, condensing into a strange palm print more than 2 feet wide. The moment the palm print appeared, the power of the golden sun and the power of the underworld appeared at the same time. These two completely opposite powers were perfectly fused together by Leng Shiqi. Just the remnants of the aura that was released made Xiao Qian, an early-stage Spirit Pulse stage cultivator, pale. How could Yuzimo have thought that Leng Shiqi would suddenly make a move? However, with his experience with Qin Jianshan, he knew that it was too late to dodge. Ignoring everything else, Yuzimo's spiritual qi surged wildly, and on his right arm, sparkling spiritual veins and dozens of bright spiritual cavities appeared. His fist was covered with gloves, and when he punched out, dozens of huge fist shadows appeared. Each fist shadow was filled with a huge amount of power. However, these fist shadows were instantly shattered by Leng Shiqi's palm print. The palm print's power did not decrease at all, and continued to press forward. So strong. Yuzimo was finally shocked. In the face of danger, he hurriedly took out a light green talisman. A trace of heartache flashed across his eyes, and he tore open the talisman. In an instant, the meeting hall emitted a green light, and the earth trembled. Branches as thick as buckets broke out of the ground, intertwining with each other and blocking in front of him. At the same time, he quickly retreated. Bang bang bang, only the sound of branches breaking could be heard. Finally, with a boom, the entire meeting hall, along with the branches, collapsed. The remaining power of Leng Shiqi's palm print made Yuzimo's throat taste sweet, and he spat out a large mouthful of blood. Yuzimo looked at the ruins of the meeting hall in horror, and even his mind was a little absent-minded. He was at the 6th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm, and no matter where he went, he could be called an expert. However, in front of that palm print, he was as weak as a low-level spirit cultivator. He even used his own trump card, a 5th-level talisman, but in the end he was still seriously injured. Now there was only one thought in his mind. How strong is Lu Xingji? And this move used by Leng Shiqi was one of his gains in the past 3 months. He had combined the 2 5th-level spirit techniques, the Great Golden Breaking Mountain Seal, and the Cold Underworld Palm Print, to form the current Great Yang Underworld Palm Print. Up to the Golden Sun, down to the 9 underworlds. The ultimate move created by the fusion of 2 5th-level spirit techniques was comparable to a 6th-level spirit technique, and was even stronger than an ordinary 6th-level spirit technique. In addition, Leng Shiqi had several high-level cultivation techniques, and his own strength was far superior to Yu Zimo's. That was why he was able to injure Yu Zimo, who had used his trump card in one move. Leng Shiqi had succeeded in one move, and he did not want to give Yu Zimo any chance to breathe. His eyes flashed with a colorful light. In Yu Zimo's eyes, Leng Shiqi had actually transformed into 4 giants that were hundreds of feet tall, like the legendary gods and demons, looking at him as if he was looking at ants. 5 Gods Spirit Intimidation Technique. Chapter 401. The 5 Gods Intimidation Technique was a high-level illusion technique that originated from the 5 Gods Flowing Light Technique. Leng Shiqi had already cultivated it to the realm of large success with his own comprehension. Moreover, with the support of his majestic mental energy and the divine Gu Ring, he had instantly caused Yu Zimo, a cultivator at the 6th level of the spirit aperture realm, to fall into the illusion. This was also the moment when Leng Shiqi caught Yu Zimo's mind off guard. Yu Zimo's mind was temporarily controlled by the 5 Gods Intimidation Technique. Leng Shiqi waved his arms and hundreds of sword chi rose behind him. The color of these sword chi was very strange. Every sword chi was red and blue, but the color was very light and looked a little translucent. Each of these sword chis was a combination of pulse-punching sword chis, frigid frost sword chis, and Xiaoyang sword chis. Every single sword chi was comparable to a 5th-tier spiritual skill, but Leng Shiqi had unleashed over 100 sword chis of the 3 severing sword. The sword chi whistled through the air and shot over. Gu Xiaoping, who had come with Yu Zimo, saw that Yu Zimo was in danger, but he was still in a daze. His expression changed and he flicked his fingers, causing a few finger attacks to hit Yu Zimo's body. Yu Zimo was attacked by Gu Xiaoping, but it helped him recover a trace of consciousness. He relied on this trace of consciousness to instantly burn his essence blood and finally get rid of the illusion of the 5 Gods Intimidation Technique. After burning his essence blood, Yu Zimo's battle strength was comparable to the late stage of the spirit aperture realm, but he did not fight back. Instead he chose to escape. Yu Zimo took out a spirit sword and the blue sword chi rolled back, shattering the sword chi of the 3 Gods Intimidation Technique one after another. However, there were too many sword chi. Even if Yu Zimo tried his best to dodge, there were still 20 to 30 sword chi of the 3 Gods Intimidation Technique that hit him. When the sword chi entered his body, Yu Zimo's body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. What shocked him even more was that after the strange sword chi entered his body, there were 3 completely different forces that burst out. One of them was as hot as fire, constantly burning his meridians and flesh. Another one was as cold as ice, freezing his body. The last one actually sealed his meridians, causing his spirit chi to not flow smoothly. What kind of sword chi was this? Yu Zimo's body was already in a mess and he couldn't move for a moment. His heart was extremely shaken and he was already regretting it. Even if he had information on Leng Shiqi, he did not expect Leng Shiqi's strength. Leng Shiqi is too strong. He was so powerful that he was terrified. Would he be able to control such a person? At this moment, Yu Zimo only wanted to hide at Duan Chun's place when he returned. All the plans against Leng Shiqi would be left to Duan Chun. There was nothing he could do. However, no matter how much he calculated, he did not consider one thing. That was Leng Shiqi's courage and Leng Shiqi's determination to kill him. Leng Shiqi pointed his finger and a blood-red lightning bolt as thick as an arm shot out. In the blink of an eye, it blasted Yu Zimo's head into pieces. Gu Xiaoping and the other 2 were instantly dumbfounded. Yu Zimo was dead? Yu Zimo was actually dead. They looked at Leng Shiqi's calm expression, and their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets. The 3 of them were terrified of Leng Shiqi's strength, and even more terrified of Leng Shiqi's madness. Leng Shiqi actually dared to kill Yu Zimo, who was also a supervisor. According to the rules of the Dark Thunder Guards, this was a life for a life, but he still did it. What made Gu Xiaoping and the other 2 even more terrified was that Leng Shiqi's gaze turned towards them. Leng Shiqi's gaze was still very calm. He looked at the 3 of them as if he was looking at 3 lifeless rocks. Run. Gu Xiaoping shouted, and then used all his strength to explode with the fastest speed in his life to escape Dark Thunder Manor. However, he had only taken 2 steps when he realized that he could no longer move. Gu Xiaoping looked down and saw that the ground was actually covered with spider webs, and the ground of the entire courtyard was like a swamp. Not only was it difficult for him to move, it was also slowly sinking him into it. This was the Bone Spirit Spider Web formation that Leng Shiqi created by combining the Gu Spirit Spider Web and the Hand of Earth. It was used to trap enemies. Not only Gu Xiaoping but the other 2 were the same. Leng Shiqi once again unleashed hundreds of triple extinction sword chi, and the sword chi fell like rain. Screams were heard and Gu Xiaoping and the other 2 were all dead. He secretly absorbed their remnant souls and frowned unhappily. A good meeting room was destroyed, what a pity. Leng Shiqi's subordinates, with the exception of Qin Jianshan, were all shocked as well. They were shocked by Leng Shiqi's strength, and even more shocked by Leng Shiqi's courage. Yuzimo was a supervisor and he was killed just like that? They had all guessed that Leng Shiqi would attack, but they never thought that Leng Shiqi would kill. Guan Feihong was the first to wake up. What he was most worried about was what to do next. Since they had already been killed, they could not be revived. Leng Shiqi killed a supervisor and 3 Dark Lightning envoys. The supervisor of the North County, Duan Chun, would definitely not sit by and do nothing. The most important thing now was to think of a way to deal with Duan Chun. Guan Feihong was just about to speak when he saw that Leng Shiqi actually went to pick up Yuzimo's personal mustard seed bag. Looking at his expression, he did not seem to care about this matter. Guan Feihong's mouth was open for a long time, but he could not say anything. He knew that Leng Shiqi was not an impulsive person. Since Leng Shiqi did this, he must have thought of what to do next. Right now, he only needed to listen to Leng Shiqi's orders. After picking up the mustard seed bag, Leng Shiqi asked, "Where is the Dark Lightning Manor under Yuzimo's jurisdiction?" Guan Feihong immediately replied, "It's in Deer Marshal City, about 300 li from here." Leng Shiqi nodded. Qiu Qing, Qiao Qian and Qin Jianshan will stay behind and finish building the meeting hall. Old Guan and Shen Ming will come with me to Deer Marshal City. The 5 of them said in unison, "We obey." After that, Leng Shiqi brought Guan Feihong and Chen Ming to Deer Marshal City. As for the remaining people, Qin Jianshan went back to consolidate his cultivation. His role in Dark Lightning Manor was to use his martial strength to intimidate the weak. Qiao Qian immediately sent people to the courtyard to prepare to rebuild the meeting hall. As for Qiu Qing, he used all of his intelligence methods to seal up everything that happened today. 2 days later, Leng Shiqi and the other 2 arrived at Deer Marshal City. The scale of Deer Marshal City was slightly larger than Misty City. It was not as remote as Misty City, and there were more merchants coming and going. At this time, Leng Shiqi, Guan Feihong and Yuzimo walked together to the entrance of Deer Marshal City's Dark Lightning Manor. Yuzimo put on an extremely ugly expression as he walked in. He opened his mouth and shouted, "Men, open the treasury's door." Chapter 402. Yuzimo had 4 Dark Lightning envoys under him. Now that 3 of them were dead, only Lu Ziming was left in Dark Lightning Manor. Lu Ziming was also a veteran. He didn't open the door to the treasury. Instead, he hurriedly ran over. However, when he saw Leng Shiqi and Guan Feihong beside Yuzimo, he was stunned. He recognized Leng Shiqi. There was a portrait of Leng Shiqi in Dark Lightning Manor's intelligence. Naturally, he knew that Leng Shiqi was the supervisor of Lanqi City. Lu Ziming also knew that his lord had been squeezing Leng Shiqi for a few months to obtain a large amount of resources. Now that the 2 of them came together, Lu Ziming was worried. Especially when he saw Yuzimo's gloomy face, he guessed that his lord must have been defeated. Yuzimo glanced at Lu Ziming and immediately shouted, "What are you waiting for?" Lu Ziming didn't dare to disobey the order. After a slight hesitation, he jogged towards the treasury. Leng Shiqi and Guan Feihong silently followed him. When they opened the treasury door, they saw a large amount of resources inside. More than 70 to 80% of them were transported from Leng Shiqi. However, Leng Shiqi felt that it was still too little. In the past few months, the resources that Yuzimo pulled from him far exceeded what he had now. As for the rest, it must have gone into Duan Chun's pocket. Yuzimo looked around and ordered, "Move all the resources to Lanqi City." Lu Ziming turned pale with fright when he heard that. All of them? Then what about the monthly salary of the Dark Lightning Guards under them next month? However, he didn't dare to ask in front of the 2 supervisors. He only looked deeply at Leng Shiqi and went to call for his men. Leng Shiqi said in a low voice, "I've said it before. No matter how much resources Yuzimo took, he would return it with interest." Yuzimo turned and smiled, "My lord is wise." This Yuzimo was obviously Thousand Face in disguise. Leng Shiqi was never impulsive. After he came out of seclusion, he began to plan how to get rid of Yuzimo and take back his resources. Killing Yuzimo and his 3 subordinates and getting Thousand Face to impersonate Yuzimo to bring back all the resources here was the first step. Thousand Faces asked, "Your Excellency, what should we do next?" Leng Shiqi and Thousand Faces knew very well that they were able to fool Lu Mingzi because as subordinates, they did not dare to spy on their superior's cultivation. That was why Thousand Face dared to pretend to be Yuzimo, who was in the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm. However, this method was useless against Duan Chun, who could see through Thousand Faces' disguise with a single glance. Since that was the case, then don't let Duan Chun and Thousand Face encounter each other. Leng Shiqi said, "Immediately go and pacify the Dark Thunder Guards here. Then claim that you are recuperating in seclusion. I want to go to Duan Chun's place." "Your Excellency." Guan Feihong and Thousand Face both looked nervous. Duan Chun was a master in the gang spirit realm. He must have something on Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi was strong enough to kill Yuzimo, but he was no match for Duan Chun. What should they do if Duan Chun used his strength to suppress them? "Don't worry." Leng Shiqi waved his hand and said, "How can I go to him without preparation? Besides, even if he is in the gang spirit realm, he may not be able to do anything to me." After that, Leng Shiqi left, and Guan Feihong was responsible for escorting the resources back to Lanqi City. However, both of them were thinking about Leng Shiqi's last words at the moment, and then they were both shocked. Speaking of Duan Chun as the supervisor of North County, the city he was in was the largest and most prosperous city in North County, Hanzhou City. Duan Chun had been living a very comfortable life for the past few months because most of the resources that Yuzimo obtained from Leng Shiqi had been given to him, the great supervisor. Although there were not many high-level resources, there were a lot of them. As long as he had the resources in his hands, many things became simple. At this time, Duan Chun was sitting in the courtyard, looking at the mission information leisurely. North County was very peaceful recently, so he had nothing important to deal with, so he was relatively free. This was all thanks to Leng Shiqi. Leng Shiqi had killed the Xianyang sect, which could be regarded as a deterrent to those restless people in North County, so it was very quiet during this time. However, at this moment, a Dark Thunder Guard ran in quickly from outside, but he did not make any footsteps, because Duan Chun did not like to be disturbed by noise. After running in, the man bowed his head and said nothing. Duan Chun put down the information with a little displeasure and said, "Tell me what's the matter?" Only then did the Dark Thunder Guard speak. "Your Excellency, Supervisor Lu Xingji of Dark Thunder Mansion in Lanqi City wants to see you." Oh. Duan Chun's face stiffened slightly, thinking that he had heard wrongly. Lu Xingji. Duan Chun was a little surprised when he heard this because Yuzimo had continuously sent him a lot of resources. He always thought that Leng Shiqi had already compromised. Then why did he come to see him today? However, he had to see him. After all, he still had to give him face, so he said, "Please go to the hall." "Yes, Your Excellency." Not long after, Leng Shiqi saw Duan Chun in the hall. After the two met, Leng Shiqi said, "Duan Chun, I'm here to thank you today." Duan Chun had just walked into the hall, and before one of his feet landed, he actually stopped when he heard these words. He looked at Leng Shiqi with a strange expression, thinking that he had heard wrongly. "What did you say? You didn't even hear that? Duan Chun, could it be that your eyesight has gone bad?" Leng Shiqi did not give the great supervisor any face and directly mocked him coldly. Duan Chun's face instantly darkened. It had been a long time since someone dared to speak to him like this, and this person was actually his subordinate. And it was a subordinate that he had blackmail on. He immediately shouted angrily, "Lu Xingji, who gave you the guts to speak to me like this? Believe it or not, I can punish you for the crime of disrespect right now." Leng Shiqi shook his head and said, "Duan Chun, you've been the great supervisor for so long, but you're still so stupid and greedy. It's not that I didn't give you any benefits for what I did in Lanqi City, but you went from bad to worse and joined forces with Yuzimo to take away more than half of my resources. Don't you think about why I dared to do this?" Duan Chun sneered proudly and said, "You think I don't know? You once secretly went to find Sir Yu Ruifeng, and you must have given him a lot of benefits to get his acquiescence. But so what? You secretly killed Dark Thunder envoy Gong Sun Bing and more than 20 of his Dark Thunder guards, and I have conclusive evidence here. Once this matter is exposed, even Sir Yu can't protect you. Leng Shiqi suddenly sighed again. Duan Chun thought that he had given in, but who knew that Leng Shiqi actually asked him back, then why don't you think about it again? Why am I so unyielding and daring to be so presumptuous in front of you? Chapter 403. Duan Chun's angry expression disappeared in an instant, and then his eyes flickered. He stared at Leng Shiqi carefully. Only then did he realize that Leng Shiqi's cultivation had reached the 5th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm. But Duan Chun clearly remembered that when he saw Leng Shiqi for the first time in the Western Wilderness City, he was only at the 5th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm. How long had it been? In about half a year, Leng Shiqi's cultivation had soared by a whole realm. This kind of strange cultivation speed was too inconceivable. Even Duan Chun, who had lived for decades and seen a lot, couldn't help but be surprised. He had to re-examine Leng Shiqi. In particular, he wanted to know what Leng Shiqi had experienced when he and Yu Ruifeng went to Zhulu country. Since they came back from Zhulu country, Yu Ruifeng didn't say a word about what happened there. Duan Chun only knew that the supervisor of South Commandery was dead, but he didn't know anything else. It seems that Lu Xingji had a fortuitous encounter in Zhulu country. However, the reason why Duan Chun dared to get benefits from Leng Shiqi was that he didn't have a strong background and experience. In Duan Chun's mind, Leng Shiqi's backer was his master Chu Hejing, who was in the realm of oneness of heaven and men. However, Chu Hejing was just a casual cultivator. Even if he was in the realm of oneness of heaven and men, he had almost the same weight as the supervisor. Moreover, he saw clearly that although Yu Ruifeng was very polite to Chu Hejing and gave him the position of supervisor of Leng Shiqi, he was just pretending. But in reality, Duan Chun was just pretending to be nice to Chu Hejing. That was why he dared to attack Leng Shiqi. At this moment, Leng Shiqi showed his cultivation at the 5th level of the Spirit Aperture Realm. Spirit Aperture Realm was nothing in Duan Chun's eyes, but the speed of Leng Shiqi's progress made him a little scared. If Leng Shiqi advanced to the Gang Spirit Realm in time, how should Duan Chun deal with it? So he couldn't fall out with Leng Shiqi now. Duan Chun made up his mind, squeezing out a smile on his face. He sat down and said, "Your cultivation has advanced so quickly, you must have had some opportunities in Zhulu country. Now that you're also in the Spirit Aperture Realm, it seems like you've secured your position as supervisor." Leng Shiqi had already guessed Duan Chun's thoughts when he was pondering, but he didn't give Duan Chun any face. Of course you can sit firmly in the position of supervisor. In the future you may even be able to become a great supervisor. The smile on Duan Chun's face suddenly disappeared. It was true that he did not want to fall out with Leng Shiqi, but it did not mean that he could tolerate Leng Shiqi's arrogance again and again. His voice was cold as he said, "So you've already set your sights on my position. Very good, very good. Then let me see if you're qualified." After Duan Chun finished speaking, he didn't do anything, but green spiritual energy suddenly burst out from his back. As soon as the spiritual energy appeared, the whole hall was instantly filled with violent spiritual energy. The green spiritual energy condensed into a long spear, roaring and thrusting straight. Duan Chun just wanted to let Leng Shiqi know that Gang Spirit Realm was not someone he could offend. Leng Shiqi was still sitting in the chair. He moved his hands together, and hundreds of silver-gray threads surged out from his hands. Those threads were like small snakes, constantly twisting and entangling the spiritual energy spear. Seeing this, Duan Chun's eyes flashed with a touch of disdain. However, those silver-gray threads did not collapse in an instant as he imagined, but tenaciously blocked the green spiritual spear. And the silver-gray threads also contained a penetrating cold force, which was constantly eroding his spiritual energy. In just 1 or 2 breaths, the spiritual energy spear was worn out. This move was the cold dark thousand silken hands that Leng Shiqi had created by fusing the dark cold dark hands and the silver silk thousand brushing hands. Although the cold thousand threads hands was not very powerful, it was the best weapon for entanglement. In particular, it could restrict the enemy's movement and erode the body with the cold force, hurting the enemy invisibly. Leng Shiqi easily resolved Duan Chun's attack, which made Duan Chun somewhat unable to sit still. Although Duan Chun just made a casual attack, his cultivation was at the 3rd level of Gang Spirit Realm. Apart from other things, Gang Spirit alone was dozens of times stronger than spiritual qi. How could Leng Shiqi take it so easily? Moreover, Leng Shiqi didn't seem to use all his strength. This caused Duan Chun's old face to be put on the spot. He wanted to teach Leng Shiqi a lesson by relying on his high cultivation, but this was the result. Duan Chun's eyes became fierce. He formed a sword with his fingers, and then the torrential cyan sword gang swept over like a rolling river. The whole hall suddenly trembled. This time, Duan Chun didn't hold back at all. He used all his spiritual qi. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but become dignified, but he didn't panic. The devil arrival saber, which was full of pure devil qi, appeared in his hand. Then all the strength of his body gathered on the saber, and even his eyes were covered with dark devil qi. With a buzz, the whole space seemed to be frozen at this moment, and Duan Chun's boundless sword gang became extremely slow. Suddenly, a seemingly invisible saber light flashed away like a flash of the night flower. And this space was actually split into two like a broken mirror. All the cyan sword gang disappeared in an instant. Duan Chun's face immediately turned pale with fright, because he could feel that there was an invisible saber light that ignored his physical defense and directly cut into his consciousness. Ah! The invisible blade tore his primordial spirit, and the feeling was more painful than being tortured. Duan Chun couldn't help but wail. Duan Chun hurriedly took out a black pill from his mustard seed bag and swallowed it. It was a kind of pill that could nourish the primordial spirit. After swallowing the pill, Duan Chun finally felt much better. Immediately, he looked at Leng Shiqi with a strong sense of fear in his eyes. Leng Shiqi had mastered such a powerful and strange saber technique. When he was in pain just now, if Leng Shiqi continued to attack, it could even threaten his life. Just as Duan Chun was shocked, the whole hall was suddenly divided neatly from the middle into two halves and collapsed on both sides. Duan Chun's pupils shrank again. Leng Shiqi didn't attack again because the previous saber attack directly took away 80% of his strength. While Duan Chun was in a daze, he also quietly swallowed a few pills to recover his spiritual power. He secretly sighed that this saber technique consumed too much of his spiritual power. Not only did it empty his spiritual power, but it also consumed most of his mental power, which gave him a headache. However, the power of this saber attack was obvious. This saber attack was created by Leng Shiqi by combining the ephemeral epiphyllum and the void-slaying saber. It was a spiritual technique that cut the physical body and the primordial spirit. Ephemeral epiphyllum. Chapter 404. Boom. The collapse of the hall immediately attracted a large number of dark thunder guards. They gathered quickly as if they were facing a formidable enemy. However, when they arrived, they didn't find any enemies. What surprised them was that the collapsed hall looked like it had been cut open from the middle by a knife. But they did not feel any knife intent just now. What on earth happened here? Back off! Duan Chun suddenly shouted. Although the crowd did not know why, they still obeyed and retreated. Duan Chun re-examined Leng Shiqi again. The more he looked at him, the more he found that he could not see through Leng Shiqi. His cultivation had soared at such a young age, but he still had such terrifying strength. No wonder he dared to come to him so unyieldingly. It turned out that his greatest reliance was his strength. If Leng Shiqi broke through to the gang spirit realm one day, would Duan Chun be able to defeat him? At this time, a question emerged in Duan Chun's mind. Who on earth was he? Duan Chun also began to doubt Leng Shiqi's identity. Putting everything else aside, just that strange saber move just now was definitely not something that a rogue cultivator could teach. After dismissing the crowd, Duan Chun said calmly, "It turns out that your strength is so strong. The power of this knife is no less than that of the gang spirit realm. You are really a young hero. But you have violated the taboo of the Dark Thunder Guards by attacking me. I can let this matter go, and I can also let bygones be bygones. In the future, you and I will mind our own business. How about that?" Duan Chun's words were tantamount to making a concession. But Leng Shiqi still shook his head. "As I said, I'm still very interested in the position of the great supervisor. Why don't you let me have a seat?" Duan Chun's face became gloomy again. He said in a low voice, "Lu Xingji, you have to know that even Lord Yu can't protect you for the crimes you have committed. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Even if I kill you here today, I'm still the great supervisor of North County." Leng Shiqi ignored him after hearing this. Instead, he put away the Devil Advent Warblade and muttered softly, "Judging by the time, it should be about time." When Leng Shiqi said such a strange sentence, Duan Chun was a little stunned. Just as he was puzzled, a Dark Thunder Guard hurried over, running and shouting, Sir Li is here." Why are you panicking? Lordly? Which lordly? The man glanced at Leng Shiqi, then walked to Duan Chun's side and whispered, "It's Lord Yu's right-hand man, Lord Li Hong." Li Hong was here. Duan Chun was shocked. Li Hong was Yu Ruifeng's favorite man and Yu Ruifeng's adopted son. He also had the cultivation of Gang Spirit Realm. According to rumors, Yu Ruifeng even intended to pass the position of patrol inspector to Li Hong. Therefore, Li Hong was not someone Duan Chun could afford to offend. But why would he suddenly come here? Duan Chun looked at Leng Shiqi suspiciously and decided to welcome Li Hong. Unexpectedly, Li Hong had already come in. Leng Shiqi and Duan Chun turned their heads at the same time. Li Hong's figure was relatively mediocre, but he was a capable and experienced man. He seemed to be in his 30s or 40s. As soon as Li Hong came in, he saw the collapsed hall and couldn't help but show a surprised look. His eyes moved back and forth between the two, and a strange light flashed in his eyes, but he didn't ask anything. He cupped his hands and said, "Sir Duan and Sir Lu are both here. It saves me a lot of trouble." Duan Chun frowned when he heard that. Li Hong actually addressed them as Lord. Although this was a polite form of address, Leng Shiqi, a supervisor, didn't deserve to be addressed this way in front of Li Hong, right? Vaguely, Duan Chun felt that things were not so simple. Then Li Hong took out a black gold scroll and slowly unfolded it. On the back of the scroll there was a word "dark" printed on it. Duan Chun was surprised when he saw the black gold scroll, and then he bowed and stood up. This was a transfer order that only the supervisor could use, and it was only used when something big happened. Li Hong cleared his throat and said, "Supervisor Lu Xingji of Lanqi City has made many outstanding achievements. He is now the supervisor of North County under the Dark Thunder Guards of West Wilderness Prefecture. The former supervisor Duan Chun will be transferred to South County." As soon as Li Hong finished speaking, Duan Chun suddenly turned to look at Leng Shiqi. His eyes were full of surprise, puzzlement, doubt and deep fear. He would never have guessed that Yu Ruifeng would let Leng Shiqi become the supervisor of the North County. The supervisor supervised the entire North County, covering dozens of cities. He had always been guarded by masters of Gang Spirit Realm. Now he let Leng Shiqi, a Gang Spirit Realm master, take over? How could he sit still? However, Duan Chun suddenly remembered that Leng Shiqi became the supervisor when he was in Spiritual Pulse Realm. Not only did he stabilize his position quickly, but he also made huge profits from it. At this moment he finally understood why Leng Shiqi was so tough and confident. He said again and again that he wanted to be the supervisor. It turned out that he had long known that Yu Ruifeng would appoint him as the supervisor of North County. For Duan Chun, although he was transferred, North County was the foundation of his many years of operation. Even though South County was richer than North County, it was equivalent to creating a lot of trouble for Duan Chun. However, no matter how unwilling he was in his heart, he did not dare to disobey Yu Ruifeng. Duan Chun's eyes flickered, and he asked Li Hong tentatively, "Lord Li, I have no objection to the transfer of South County. It's just that I'm used to using some people. Can I take them to South County?" This? Li Hong was a little embarrassed. Then he looked at Leng Shiqi and said, "Lord Lu, you can decide." Leng Shiqi did not hesitate and said, "You can take them away, but you can't take anything." Duan Chun laughed in his heart when he heard this. He laughed at Leng Shiqi for being short-sighted. He only knew about resources but did not know the value of talents. Then he snorted coldly with an expressionless face, turned around and left. He thought, I'll transfer all the elites of North County. Let's see how you'll monitor North County." In fact, Leng Shiqi wanted Duan Chun to take away as many people as possible. This way he could arrange more blood-clothing pavilion assassins. After that, the few of them began to hand over their authority. At the same time, Lu Ziming was anxiously pacing around his room in Deer Marshall City. Ever since his lord Yu Zimo returned, he had been avoiding people. There were many things that could not be decided. The other 3 Dark Lightning emissaries had also disappeared. He had sent people to Misty Chi City to investigate, but they did not find anything. All of this was so strange that it was worth thinking about. After hesitating for a while, Lu Ziming resolutely went to the place where the information was transmitted. He wanted to report all his suspicions to the great supervisor, Duan Chun. Although he was acting on his own initiative and overstepping his authority, he had no other choice. However, when he arrived at the sound transmission array, an order came out from it. It was an order that shocked him to the core. Lu Ziming collapsed to the ground. He knew that they were finished. Chapter 405. In Hanzhou City's Dark Thunder Manor, Duan Chun went to the backyard to make preparations, while the Dark Thunder guards who were peeking nearby were stunned. Their immediate superior was changed just like that? To them it was like the sky had changed. On the other hand, Leng Shiqi smiled and chatted with Li Hong for a while. Li Hong was quite attentive towards Leng Shiqi. Every time he heard Yu Ruifeng mention Leng Shiqi, be it his expression or tone, he would be full of praise. But Li Hong had never felt jealous. He understood Yu Ruifeng very well. Someone who could make his adoptive father praise him must have some outstanding points. Seeing it today, it was indeed so. Although Li Hong did not see the battle between Leng Shiqi and Duan Chun, it was clear that the two of them had destroyed the discussion hall, while Leng Shiqi, who was at the spirit aperture realm, was not injured at all. This was the embodiment of strength. But because the entire hall had collapsed, the two of them did not even have a place to sit. After exchanging some pleasantries, Li Hong took his leave and went back to report. Leng Shiqi stood in the middle of the ruins and shouted, "Men!" Several Dark Thunder guards nearby immediately trotted over. They lowered their posture and bowed one by one, saying, "Sir, please give us your orders. Tidy up this place and find a room for me to rest." "Yes, Lord, please follow me." A moment later, Leng Shiqi was brought into a luxurious room. This was the room that Duan Chun used to entertain important guests. Leng Shiqi closed the door and released goo worms nearby before recovering his spirit energy. At the same time, he smiled inwardly. Today's events were all part of his plan. On the day he came out of seclusion, he had asked Chiu Cheng to send a message to Yu Ruifeng, saying that he had come out of seclusion and could directly send the transfer order to Hanzhou City. Leng Shiqi also knew that the person who came to announce the transfer order was Li Hong. From the western desolated city to Hanzhou City, it would take 3 to 4 days at normal speed. On the other hand, Leng Shiqi made a trip to Martial Deer City to settle Yu Zimo's matter before returning to Hanzhou City. Judging from the time, he would arrive at Hanzhou City around the same time as Li Hong. To be on the safe side, Leng Shiqi even used his fate skill to check Li Hong's approximate location before entering Dark Thunder Manor to meet Duan Chun. With all these arrangements, Leng Shiqi finally stepped through the gates of Dark Thunder Manor. In addition, there were many reasons why he had a conflict with Duan Chun. Firstly, he wanted Duan Chun to be wary of his strength and even more wary of his potential. After all, Duan Chun did have something on Leng Shiqi. If he really exposed it, even if Yu Ruifeng favored him, he would not be able to avoid punishment. Therefore, he wanted to use this method to make Duan Chun worry so that he would not dare to expose the matter easily. For Leng Shiqi, the more time passed, the higher his status and strength would be, and the less effective Duan Chun's hold on him would be. Over time, Duan Chun would not be a threat to him. Secondly, Leng Shiqi also wanted to use Duan Chun to test his real strength. He had been in seclusion for 3 months, settling down for a long time, and deducing and integrating many spiritual skills through his spiritual force. Originally, he wanted to try his saber on Yu Zimo, but before he could use his full strength, Yu Zimo died. Therefore, Leng Shiqi turned his attention to Duan Chun. Duan Chun's cultivation was at the 3rd level of Gang Spirit Realm, which was not high among the great supervisors. The reason why he could be the great supervisor was his ability. After all, Dark Thunder Guards was not a military organization, but more inclined to investigation and intelligence. After a fight, Leng Shiqi generally knew that his limit was at the level of Gang Spirit Realm. With the cultivation of the 5th level of Spirit Aperture Realm, his strength was comparable to that of Gang Spirit Realm. As for the third reason why he wanted to fight with Duan Chun, it was to irritate Duan Chun. Now Duan Chun had made up his mind to take away all the elites in Dark Thunder Mansion, leaving Leng Shiqi as a commander without an army. However, he did not know that this was exactly what Leng Shiqi wanted to see. If Duan Chun did not take people away, how could he transfer people from Blood-Clothed Pavilion? Therefore he could kill 3 birds with 1 stone by fighting with Duan Chun. The news that Leng Shiqi was promoted to the Great Supervisor of North County was immediately transmitted to all the Dark Thunder Mansions in North County through the sound transmission formation. Anyone who got the news was shocked. Of course, for different people, the reaction was different. For example, Lu Ziming knew that he was finished. Yu Zimo had moved a lot of resources from Leng Shiqi in the past few months, which could be said to have offended Leng Shiqi. But who would have thought that Leng Shiqi would become the Great Supervisor of North County in the blink of an eye? As the saying goes, those with a higher rank can crush people to death. There was no need to think too much. Soon, their dear Martial City's Dark Thunder Manor would definitely face a great purge. The few people in Mishchi City did not have much of a reaction when they received the news because they already knew about it when Qiu Qing sent the news. However, they were also looking forward to it because Leng Shiqi's promotion meant that the position of the supervisor of Mishchi City would be vacant. Perhaps it would fall on their heads. In North County, there were a total of 6 Dark Thunder mansions. Other than Hanzhou City, there were a total of 5 supervisors scattered around. Other than Mishchi City and Deer Marshal City, the other 3 supervisors were shocked when they received the news. They had obviously heard of the name, Lu Xingji, which was why they found it hard to believe. In fact, it had only been half a year since Leng Shiqi entered the Dark Thunder Guards. In half a year he had directly become the great supervisor. Not to mention that no one would be able to achieve this kind of promotion speed in the future, it was definitely unprecedented. The 3 of them tried their best to gather information about Leng Shiqi and found out that Leng Shiqi seemed to have fought with Duan Chun and destroyed the meeting hall. In the end, the 2 of them seemed to be evenly matched. A Spirit Aperture Realm Cultivator and a Spirit Astral Realm Cultivator were evenly matched? They also began to wonder about Leng Shiqi's background and strength. In addition, Leng Shiqi's position as the Great Supervisor was personally conferred by Yu Ruifeng, which meant that Leng Shiqi was highly regarded by Yu Ruifeng. The 3 of them did not dare to have any other thoughts and planned to go to Hanzhou City to meet the new Great Supervisor. At the same time, Leng Shiqi also sent a message to Qiu Qing and Yu Zimo, asking them to come to Hanzhou City. In Mishchi City's Dark Thunder Mansion, Qin Jianchen, Guan Feihong, Qiu Qing, and Xiao Qian arranged everything and set off together. Only Qin Jianchen and Guan Feihong knew that they might not have the chance to come to Mishchi City in the future. In Deer Marshal City's Dark Thunder Mansion, Yu Zimo, who had been recuperating for a few days, also came out and found Lu Ziming immediately. When he learned that Leng Shiqi had been promoted to the Great Supervisor, he pretended to be shocked and then rushed to Hanzhou City with Lu Ziming with a serious expression. Chapter 406. 3 days later, a brand new meeting hall was built in Hanzhou City's Dark Thunder Manor. At this moment, Leng Shiqi was sitting high up, and there were 4 people sitting in front of him. Apart from Yu Zimo, the other 3 were Pure Loyalty City's supervisor, Xin Yuanda, who was a rather old man. There was also Huijiang City's supervisor, Ruan Hongguang, who was a man dressed in martial attire. There was also Longyi City's supervisor, Jin Yuan, who was a young man with a smile. As for the Lanqi City's supervisor position, there was no one here. After the few of them exchanged greetings for a while, the atmosphere in the entire assembly hall became more and more solemn. Xin Yuanda and the other 2 all looked at Yu Zimo. They had also inquired about what Yu Zimo had done some time ago. They all sneered in their hearts, thinking that Yu Zimo really didn't know what was good for him. Today Leng Shiqi called them over not only to meet and explain the new rules, but also to use Yu Zimo to establish his power. Sure enough, Leng Shiqi quickly made things difficult for Yu Zimo. He said coldly, "Yu Zimo, I can let bygones be bygones for what you have done in the past, but you should show some sincerity." Yu Zimo's face suddenly sank and he stammered, "Sir, previously in Deer Marshal City, this humble one has already handed over all the resources in the treasury. However, this humble one is willing to contribute all the resources collected in the future to Sir, and swear to be loyal to Sir forever." Not enough. Leng Shiqi said these 2 words with an expressionless face. Yu Zimo took a deep breath and a dagger suddenly appeared in his hand, and he ruthlessly stabbed it into his shoulder. He didn't use any spiritual energy to block it, nor did he suppress the wound, and blood flowed out freely. The bright red color immediately made the other 3 feel that it was very dazzling, and at the same time, they all felt a chill run down their backs. However, Leng Shiqi still said, "Not enough." Yu Zimo raised his hand, and his eyes stared straight at Leng Shiqi, and he said in a deep voice, "Could it be that this humble one has to commit suicide here for Sir to be satisfied? That sounds like a good idea." Yu Zimo couldn't bear it any longer and revealed a look of anger. The 3 inspectors beside him did not even dare to breathe loudly. It was obvious that Leng Shiqi was using Yu Zimo to establish his authority. Leng Shiqi's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He raised one hand to the sky, and a dazzling golden light condensed into a small sun. As the blazing sun appeared in the sky, waves of sharp golden energy assaulted their faces, causing them to activate their protective spiritual armors one after another. Then the golden sun suddenly changed and a layer of green flames ignited on it. Those were not ordinary flames but poisonous flames. After the 6 Yang poisonous fire palm merged with the glorious sun mysterious sun palm, it became the glorious sun poisonous sun palm. Leng Shiqi shot out a palm, and the poisonous flame-blazing sun rushed towards Uzimo. Uzimo knew something was wrong the moment Leng Shiqi made his move. He turned around and started to run, but how could he run? In the blink of an eye, Uzimo's body was completely submerged by the poisonous flame-blazing sun, and a thunderous roar resounded in the meeting hall. A strong poisonous flame raged, and a tyrannical power erupted. A part of the meeting hall that had just been built collapsed in an instant. When all the power dissipated, where was Uzimo's figure? He had been directly turned into ashes by this move. Shen Yuanda, Ruan Hongguang and Jin Yuan all had their mouths wide open, and their eyes were filled with horror. No matter what, Uzimo's cultivation was at the spirit aperture realm, and he had been killed by Leng Shiqi in a single move. Moreover, even if Uzimo had offended Leng Shiqi, he was still an inspector. How could Leng Shiqi dare to kill an inspector in public? Originally, they had only thought that Leng Shiqi would use Uzimo to beat them up, and Uzimo would at most be reprimanded and given some benefits. However, they had never thought that Leng Shiqi would kill Uzimo in front of them. At this moment, they had experienced Leng Shiqi's terrifying strength and iron fist. They also understood that today, Leng Shiqi did not want to use Uzimo to beat them up, but to use Uzimo's blood as an example to others. Shen Yuanda was the first to react. He bowed deeply and said, "Your Excellency's strength is unprecedented. This humble one admires you." The other two immediately complimented him. Leng Shiqi clapped his hands and revealed a harmless smile. He casually motioned for everyone to sit down, as if the one who had just killed someone was not him at all. After the 4 of them sat down, Leng Shiqi said with a smile, "The 3 of you are all senior inspectors of the North County. I am the newly appointed inspector and I still need your support. Your Excellency is too polite. We will definitely follow your lead." "Yes, Your Excellency, please feel free to instruct this humble one in the future. It is this humble one's honor to be able to serve Your Excellency." The 3 of them nodded like they were pounding garlic and spoke eagerly. "Since all of you have said so, this envoy really does have a troublesome matter." Leng Shiqi frowned and said, "You should also know that after the previous great inspector Duan Chun left, he took away most of the elites of Dark Thunder Manor. I am currently short of manpower here." Shen Yuanda immediately said, "Your Excellency, please rest assured. When this humble one returns, I will personally select 30 elite Dark Thunder guards and a Dark Thunder envoy for Your Excellency." This number was equivalent to 1/3 of his subordinates, and he said it so easily. Of course, Ruan Hongguang and Jin Yuan were not willing to fall behind. They also expressed that they would send a large number of elites over. Leng Shiqi nodded in satisfaction and said, "You can rest assured that after a while, this envoy will also recruit some people for you. I will not let you suffer a loss." Shen Yuanda and the other 2 looked at each other. At this moment, they understood that Leng Shiqi did not really want to borrow their people. Instead, he wanted to place Leng Shiqi's own people in their subordinates. However, even if they knew, they did not dare to have any intention of disobeying. After all, Uzimo's bloodstains were still in front of them. They did not want to follow in Uzimo's footsteps. Since Leng Shiqi's goal was achieved, they politely said a few words and sent the 3 people away. After the 3 people left, a figure suddenly appeared in the hall. It was Thousand Face. The Uzimo that Leng Shiqi killed was naturally Thousand Face in disguise. Before the solar poisonous Yang palm fell, he used the hand of earth to lure Thousand Face into the ground. However, under the cover of the dazzling light of the solar poisonous Yang palm, Shen Yuanda and the other 2 did not notice. Leng Shiqi asked Thousand Face to call Qin Jianshan and the others over and arrange a series of things. Chapter 407. In the following period of time, the Dark Thunder Guards in the North region underwent a huge change in personnel. Firstly, all the Dark Thunder envoys in the Mist Qi City's Dark Thunder Manor were transferred to Hanzhou City. These people were used to Leng Shiqi, so they were all transferred over. As for the Mist Qi City, he directly transferred a silver-striped blood-clothed assassin and 4 black-striped blood-clothed assassins from the Blood Cloth Pavilion to oversee the city. From then on, the Mist Qi City's Dark Thunder Manor had completely become a small branch of the Blood Cloth Pavilion. The Deer Marshal City's Dark Thunder Manor was about the same. The high-level supervisors and Dark Thunder envoys were all replaced by assassins from the Blood Cloth Pavilion. As for the Dark Thunder Guards, a portion of them were transferred to Hanzhou City. At the same time, Leng Shiqi also arranged for dozens of black-clothed assassins to enter Deer Marshal City. As for the remaining 3 Dark Thunder Manors, just as Leng Shiqi had previously instructed, Leng Shiqi had arranged for some black-clothed assassins and 1 black-striped blood-clothed assassin to monitor Xin Yuanda and the other 2 at all times. Very quickly, the entire north region was in the hands of Leng Shiqi. With his spirit aperture realm cultivation, no one dared to question or provoke him when he took the position of the head supervisor. This was because there were only 2 groups of people who dared to provoke him. One of them was the seniors in Hanzhou City's Dark Thunder Manor, but almost all of them were taken away by Duan Chun. The remaining few were quite old and had no other advantages other than experience, so they naturally couldn't cause any trouble. The other group was Xin Yuanda and the other 2. However, these 3 people were directly frightened by Leng Shiqi. Therefore, he easily stabilized his position, and it was even easier than when he took the position of head supervisor. Moreover, he also instructed Deer Marshal City and the surrounding cities to openly smuggle goods, and the rules were the same as Mishchi cities. As a result, the resources Leng Shiqi could obtain every month instantly doubled. Moreover, as time passed, this city would definitely attract more and more merchants, and his harvest would only increase. What Leng Shiqi needed to do next was to integrate the assassins he arranged into the Dark Thunder Guards as soon as possible. At the very least, the Dark Thunder Hall could operate normally. Therefore, Leng Shiqi was also very busy these days. He had never been good at these things, but now that he was appointed as the great supervisor, he couldn't be as relaxed as before. At the very least, he would have to wait for his subordinates to completely take over a few Dark Thunder Manors before he could do so. That night, after Leng Shiqi finished reviewing all the missions and information, he closed his eyes and took a nap. He had never liked to do such things, but he was exhausted these past few days. It was even more tiring than non-stop cultivation. However, at this moment, Leng Shiqi, who was resting with his eyes closed, suddenly pointed his finger. In an instant, the blood qi and the power of lightning transformed into a blood-red thunderbolt that shot out towards an empty space in the room. However, the blood-red bolt of lightning suddenly turned invisible and disappeared halfway through its flight. At the same time, a figure walked out of the void. It was Wuxia. Wuxia appeared and stared at Leng Shiqi with a burning gaze. He secretly praised, "Tiskithe, my good disciple, is this how you welcome your master?" Leng Shiqi didn't expect Wuxia to suddenly appear here. Just now, he inadvertently sensed that there was a weak aura hidden nearby, so he took action to test it out. Disciple greets master. Leng Shiqi stood up and cupped his fist. Wuxia raised his hand and formed an isolation restriction. He praised, "I've heard about what you did in the Dark Thunder Guards. I didn't expect you to be promoted to the great supervisor in just half a year. Your cultivation has also improved by leaps and bounds. As expected, a great teacher produces a great disciple." Leng Shiqi heard this and the corner of his eyes twitched. However, he still said, "It's all because of master's good teaching." That's enough. I was just saying it casually. Your cultivation has improved so quickly. It seems that you have had a lot of opportunities. You are really lucky. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi didn't think so. Instead, he felt that he was too good at causing trouble. No matter where he went, he would inexplicably encounter great danger. Just like this time in Zhulu country, if he didn't have several trump cards, he would have died long ago. How could he have the glory he had today? Therefore, opportunities and dangers coexisted. Some people could turn dangers into opportunities, while others would be buried even if they were given a great opportunity. However, Leng Shiqi didn't know why Wuxia suddenly appeared here. He asked, "Master, why did you come all the way from Muqing County to the West Desolate Province?" "It's all because of you." Wuxia sighed deeply and said, "After you became the great supervisor, almost half of the assassins in the West Desolate Province were transferred away by you. The West Desolate Province is remote, and there aren't many assassins there. With so many people transferred away, the West Desolate Province is almost unable to operate. I brought a group of assassins from the main pavilion to replenish the number of people in the West Desolate Province, so I came to see you." Hearing this answer, Leng Shiqi didn't know whether to laugh or cry. When he went to the West Desolate Province to use the silver-striped blood kill order to transfer people, the main pavilion here agreed very quickly, so Leng Shiqi didn't care too much. It turned out that the other party's heart was bleeding. Wuxia continued, "Of course, Master also has a few things to tell you. First of all, with your cultivation you could have been promoted to a silver-striped blood-clothed assassin, but you haven't done a mission for a long time, so the blood drops are definitely not enough. The sect took into account your uniqueness, and let many of our people infiltrate the Dark Thunder Guards, which is not a small contribution, so the sect decided to directly promote you to a silver-striped blood-clothed assassin. Leng Shiqi was stunned for a moment. He actually almost forgot about this. The main thing was that he hadn't done an assassin mission for too long, so he almost forgot that it was his job. Then Wuxiang took out a bag and handed it over. Leng Shiqi opened it and saw his new clothes, identity token, and 2 jade slips. Wuxiang explained, "You are a newly promoted silver-striped blood-clothed assassin, so according to the rules, you can obtain a level 5 spirit technique for free. It's not convenient for you to go to the main pavilion to choose, so I directly chose one for you. It's more suitable for the 7 Fiend Blood Kill art. As for the other jade slip, it's the complete 7 Fiend Blood Kill art. The complete 7 Fiend Blood Kill art. And the spirit technique that was compatible with it. The 7 Fiend Blood Kill art that Leng Shiqi cultivated before was given to him by senior sister Suwan, and it was only the first part. After he broke through to the spirit aperture realm, there was no other cultivation method, so of course he was happy to accept it. At this time, Leng Shiqi suddenly asked, "Master, I want to ask you about someone." Wu Xiang laughed sinisterly and said, "Kid, even if you don't say it, I know who it is. It's Delta Origi." Chapter 408. As for Delta Origi, Leng Shiqi really wanted to know her whereabouts. Since the Blood Cloak Pavilion's Blood Seed plan had been launched, Delta Origi must have been arranged to join a big force. He was both concerned and curious. However, Wu Xiang fell silent. Leng Shiqi's heart suddenly tightened. Could it be that something had happened to Delta Origi? "Master, what happened to Delta Origi?" he asked anxiously. "She went to the Blood Prison." Wu Xiang's voice was a little low. Blood Prison? Leng Shiqi had never heard of this place, but just by hearing the name, he knew it was not a good place. Wu Xiang explained, "There are 2 kinds of people in the Blood Prison. One is the abandoned disciples of the Blood Cloak Pavilion. These people basically violated the rules of the sect and were sent to the Blood Prison. If there are no accidents, they will be trapped there for the rest of their lives. As for the other kind, it has something to do with you and Gusan." Leng Shiqi could not help but be a little surprised when he heard this. Before the establishment of the Blood Fog Island, the biggest difficulty the sect encountered was the lack of a large number of talents. As you know, the Blood Cloak Pavilion is an assassin force. Whether it is the system of training assassins or the strength of their assassins, they are the best in the world. However, there are almost no people in the Blood Cloak Pavilion who study formations, alchemy, weapon refining, and the like. In order to establish the Blood Fog Island, a large number of formation masters, beast tamers, puppet masters, and so on are needed. The Blood Cloak Pavilion does not have any of these people. Therefore, the sect decided to use the method of escaping, secretly keeping those who needed to be killed in the mission and sending them to the Blood Fog Island to maintain the normal operation of the Blood Fog Island. After you came out of the Blood Fog Island, these people were supposed to be dealt with, but they were indeed very capable. The sect also felt that it was a pity to kill them directly, so they were all imprisoned in the Blood Prison. The more he listened, the more Leng Shiqi frowned. From what Wu Xiang said, the people in the Blood Prison could be said to be all vicious outlaws. Why did Delta Origi go to the Blood Prison? Could it be that she had made a huge mistake? At this time Wu Xiang said, "Delta Origi wanted to go in." What? Leng Shiqi was suddenly surprised. His mind raced, but he couldn't figure out why Delta Origi would take the initiative to enter the Blood Prison. Wu Xiang looked at Leng Shiqi with a strange look. "Speaking of which, this has something to do with you. Because the Delta Origi felt that their strength was far inferior to yours and wanted to catch up to you or even surpass you, they chose to enter the Blood Prison." "Master will not hide it from you, the living environment in the Blood Prison is far worse than you can imagine. Compared to the Blood Prison, the Blood Mist Island you're on is simply an immortal palace. However, you don't have to worry. The sect naturally won't let anything happen to Delta Origi. There are also people secretly protecting her in the Blood Prison. And from what I know, Delta Origi seems to have already broken through to the Spirit Aperture realm. It seems that her decision to go to the Blood Prison was the correct one." Hearing that Delta Origi had also broken through to the Spirit Aperture realm, Leng Shiqi was inwardly shocked. He remembered that Delta Origi had only broken through to the Spirit Aperture realm for less than a year, but she had actually directly crossed an entire realm. Delta Origi's cultivation talent could be said to be terrifying. She had also received the teachings of the Sky Origin Realm expert, Bone Demon, and had also trained in the Blood Prison, so it was natural for her to have such a cultivation. Seeing that Leng Shiqi seemed to understand, Wuxiang changed the topic. You've been promoted very quickly in the Western Desolate Province, but from now on, don't be greedy and advance rashly. You need to know how to restrain yourself. Although the Western Desolate Province is under Yu Ruifeng's jurisdiction, there are still others watching you. If you promote too quickly and too loudly, it will inevitably attract the attention of others. Your identity can be said to be perfect, but Master's identity still has loopholes. If someone finds out, all our previous efforts will be wasted. Leng Shiqi nodded. He had originally planned to stabilize for a period of time. Since Wuxiang had nothing else to tell him, he might as well quietly leave. Leng Shiqi began to study the complete 7 Fiend Blood Art as well as the new rank 5 spiritual skill 7 Fiend Blood Art. First, he used the system to learn the 7 Fiend Blood Art. The biggest characteristic of the 7 Fiend Blood Art was that it could mobilize one's own blood chi and killing intent. Blood Carnage was a spiritual skill that used blood chi. Now that he was at the Spirit Aperture Realm, he could cultivate a deeper level of killing intent. The spiritual skill that controlled killing intent was called Imperial Fiend Art. This spiritual skill did not have a specific rank, because the power of the Imperial Fiend Art was directly related to the density of the user's killing intent. After Leng Shiqi finished cultivating the Imperial Fiend Art, he formed a seal with both hands. He planned to stimulate the invisible killing intent in his body to see how high his killing intent was. Leng Shiqi's seal did not move. Immediately, a trace of blood chi emerged from his body. Immediately after, his body seemed to have opened a floodgate as waves of killing intent appeared crazily. Not long after, the entire room was filled with a dense killing intent. One could even faintly hear the wailing of ghosts. Even Leng Shiqi's eyes were faintly red as a tyrannical emotion rose up. At this moment, Leng Shiqi's spiritual illusion world shook slightly. A ripple filled with a strange rhythm surged out and suppressed the emotions. He looked to his left and right and was a little surprised at how thick his murderous aura was. Normally, people who had this much killing intent would have already become madmen who only knew how to kill. The reason why Leng Shiqi did not have any abnormalities was because his willpower was very firm and his mentality was very good. Perhaps it was a habit formed from the Blood Fog Island, but the people he killed were people who deserved to be killed. Therefore, he did not have any worries in his heart. Moreover, his mental strength was very strong and was enough to suppress the killing intent. Next, Leng Shiqi followed the method in the Imperial Fiend Art to first tame the killing intent and completely absorb it for his own use. In this way, he could avoid being affected by the killing intent and also use it to defend against enemies. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. The spirit seal in Leng Shiqi's hand changed, and the dense baleful aura quickly gathered and slowly circulated around him. As time passed, the killing intent condensed into a layer of dark red light film that attached to Leng Shiqi's body. Gradually, the shape of this layer of light film began to change. After 2 hours, it actually transformed into a thin light armor. This was one of the methods of using killing intent in the Imperial Fiend Art, the Blood Fiend Spirit Armor. Spirit Aperture Realm cultivators were able to use their spirit energy to condense a protective spirit armor around their body. The protective spirit armor was far stronger than the protective spirit energy. Normal Spirit Pulse Realm attacks would find it difficult to break through the protective spirit armor. The defensive power of the Blood Fiend Spirit Armor was far stronger than the protective spirit armor. At the same time, the killing intent released by the armor could affect the opponent's mind. This was a high-level spirit technique that combined both defense and disruption. In addition, the Imperial Fiend Art also had an offensive spirit technique called Heart Calamity. Chapter 409. Evil Heart Retribution was a method that could inject evil chi into the enemy's body. The evil chi would erode the enemy's body and destroy the enemy's consciousness. It could be said that it was an extremely vicious spiritual technique. Leng Shiqi directly used his infinite skill points to upgrade these 2 spiritual techniques to the Great Perfection Realm. The Blood Evil Spirit Armor became more solid and heavy. Unfortunately, he couldn't test the power of the Evil Heart Retribution. After cultivating these 2 spiritual techniques, Leng Shiqi picked up another Jade Slip. This was the level 5 spiritual technique that Wuxiang had chosen for him, the 7 Swords of Bloody Massacre. This sword technique was of the same origin as the 7 Swords of Bloody Massacre. The 2 complemented each other, but it wasn't recorded in the cultivation technique. This was because the Blood Garment Pavilion had never restricted the cultivation direction of their disciples. The Blood Slaughter 7 Fiend art itself had the Blood Slaughter art and the Fiend Resistance art, which were both auxiliary spirit skills. In this way, the Blood Cloak assassins could choose the path that was most suitable for them based on their talents and preferences. If you used a sword, you could also exchange your blood for the 7 swords of bloody massacre. Leng Shiqi picked up the jade slip and used his mental power to explore it. He saw the cultivation technique of the 7 swords of bloody massacre. At the same time, the system gave him a prompt. Without saying anything, he cultivated it to the Great Perfection realm in one step. The 7 swords of bloody massacre had a total of 7 sword moves. Each move was stronger than the previous one. When cultivated to the Great Perfection realm, the 7 moves could be combined into one move. When the sword was used, it seemed like only one move, but in fact there were 7 sword moves hidden. Not only was the explosive power extremely strong, but it was also impossible to guard against. For Leng Shiqi, with his current cultivation, the previous 17 sword techniques of Mount Song was somewhat useless. Therefore, the Bloody Slaughter 7 deadly swords could be considered as a supplement for him. With Wuxiang's visit, he gave Leng Shiqi a cultivation method and a spiritual skill, which allowed Leng Shiqi's strength to increase again. When Leng Shiqi finished studying the cultivation techniques and spiritual techniques, the sky was already bright. He pondered for a moment and sent someone to call Qiu Qing over. When Qiu Qing learned that Leng Shiqi was looking for him early in the morning, he knew that there must be something urgent. He hurried to Leng Shiqi's room and bowed. "Greetings, Darren." After Leng Shiqi transferred Qiu Qing to Hanzhou City, although he was still a Dark Lightning envoy, the authority in his hands was far greater than before. He also knew that all of this was given to him by Leng Shiqi, so he was even more respectful towards Leng Shiqi. "Qiu Qing, let me ask you," Leng Shiqi asked straightforwardly, "are there any powerful alchemists in the northern county? At the very least, it has to be the kind that can refine Tier 6 medicinal pills." The reason why Leng Shiqi asked this was because he didn't lack any cultivation methods or spiritual skills, and he was almost done with the fusion of the spiritual skills. Thus, he began to shift his focus to improving his cultivation. However, for a spirit cultivator of the spirit aperture realm, increasing his cultivation was becoming more and more difficult. If he only relied on bitter cultivation, he didn't know when he would be able to cultivate to the 9th level of the spirit aperture realm. Although Leng Shiqi had the yin-yang spirit convergence array, this array consumed too many spirit stones. In the 3 months that he was in seclusion, he had already used up 70 to 80% of the spirit stones he obtained from the Gu God sect. Even if his family was rich, it couldn't support him to use the yin-yang spirit convergence array without limit. Thus, Leng Shiqi thought of the most suitable pill for a spirit aperture realm cultivator, the awakening pill. Not only could the awakening pill help a spirit cultivator open their spirit aperture, it could also greatly increase their cultivation. And Leng Shiqi himself had something very precious, and that was the awakening pill's recipe. This recipe was obtained in the illusory spirit secret realm, and he had never used it. Now it was time for it to be used. The awakening pill was a Tier 6 medicinal pill, and the awakening pill's recipe was enough to be ranked as a Tier 8 treasure. The value of the awakening pill and its recipe was the same as the value of eggs and hens. One was a one-time consumable, and the other was something that could be continuously produced. The value was completely incomparable. However, Leng Shiqi didn't know how to refine pills, so he could only recruit an alchemist who could refine the awakening pill. As for the materials, he had prepared most of them. First of all, he had taken a lot of materials to refine the awakening pill when he was in the Gu God sect. Coupled with the inventory of the various Dark Thunder Hall, he didn't have to worry about the materials for a short period of time. Now, it could be said that everything was ready and he only lacked an alchemist. Thus he called Qiu Qing over to ask. Qiu Qing's eyes were moving around, and he was carefully searching his memories. People who could refine Tier 6 medicinal pills were enough to be called alchemist masters. Such people were very rare, and after thinking for a while, he finally thought of one person. "Sir, there is indeed an alchemist master in the north region called Wenren Go." Qiu Qing replied, "However, this person is not from a spirit cultivator sect. He has been wandering around for many years, so I don't know where he is now. I don't even know if he is in the north region. As long as there is someone." Leng Shiqi ordered, "Spread out all the information to find Wenren Go. Once you find him, immediately invite him over." "Yes." Qiu Qing did not hesitate to turn around and carry out the task. After Qiu Qing left, Leng Shiqi sent someone to call Guan Feihong. After Guan Feihong walked in, he cupped his hands and took out a piece of paper. Then he stood with his hands behind his back. Leng Shiqi immediately frowned. During this period of time he had asked Guan Feihong to search for information about the Dark Shadow clan, but the result was a piece of paper? One must know that Guan Feihong was able to mobilize the Blood Cloak Pavilion and the Dark Thunder Guard's information network at the same time. How could he only find out such little information? However, Leng Shiqi did not mean to blame him. He believed that Guan Feihong would not neglect his duties. Since he had upgraded the system, he knew that he had a bloodline called the Dark Shadow clan. However, he was very unfamiliar with this name, so he asked Guan Feihong to search for information about it. When Leng Shiqi picked up the piece of paper, there was only one line on it. The Dark Shadow clan seems to be related to the Nether Temple. The Nether Temple. Leng Shiqi murmured these words. At this time, Guan Feihong took out another piece of information, which recorded the information about the Nether Temple. Similarly, this piece of information only had a few sentences. The Nether Temple is a transcendent force that is above the three dynasties. It is one of the Yin and Yang temples. Guan Feihong explained in a timely manner, the Nether Temple is extremely secretive. Until now no one knows where their sect is. According to the information for thousands of years, the Nether Temple has only appeared a few times on the continent. However, every time they appear they will display shocking strength. The last time they appeared was more than 10 years ago. At that time, a first-rate force was single-handedly slaughtered by a person from the Nether Temple. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi frowned deeply. Chapter 410. Leng Shiqi just wanted to inquire about his bloodline, but he didn't expect that the Nether Temple would be involved. According to Guan Feihong, a person who could destroy a first-class force by himself must be an expert of the Tianyuan realm. And the Nether Temple was even more powerful than the three dynasties. It could be imagined how terrible this force was. The system did show that Leng Shiqi had the bloodline, but he didn't feel it at all. He also remembered that before he broke through to the Spirit Aperture realm on the Gu God Peak, a mysterious black mark appeared on his forehead, which helped him absorb a lot of power. But since then, Leng Shiqi had checked his body countless times, but he didn't find any trace. Now he knew that the Dark Shadow clan had an inseparable relationship with the Nether Temple, and he had no way to deal with it for a while. Of course, the real awakening of the bloodline would definitely make his strength improve greatly, but Leng Shiqi didn't want to provoke such a giant like the Nether Temple for no reason. So he had to put the bloodline matter aside for the time being. Well, thank you for your hard work, Leng Shiqi said to Guan Feihong. It's my duty. Guan Feihong changed the topic and said, by the way, Your Excellency, I just got the news this morning that the second-class force, Wind and Thunder Tower, invited you to participate in their monster slaughtering assembly. Wind and Thunder Tower? Monster slaughtering assembly? He had heard of the Wind and Thunder Tower. It was one of the few second-class forces in the North County, famous for the power of wind and thunder. But why would the Wind and Thunder Tower hold a monster slaughtering assembly? This was the West Wilderness County, where there wasn't even a demonic beast. How could there be a monster to slaughter? What Leng Shiqi cared more about was that when he heard the word monster, he immediately thought of Jioli. It had been half a year since he parted with Jioli last time. During this time he hadn't received any message from Jioli, let alone know where she had gone. But Leng Shiqi knew that Jioli wouldn't stay put. Last time in the Donglin County, Jioli sneaked into the Extreme Fire Manor and took most of their resources. Later she was chased by two gang Spirit Realm disciples, which was miserable. This time could he have offended the Wind Thunder Tower again? This was not Leng Shiqi's imagination running wild. Rather, if there was a powerful demonic beast in the Western Desolate Province, it could only be Nine Leaf. Of course, Leng Shiqi also hoped that he was just imagining things. Guan Feihong saw that Leng Shiqi didn't say anything, so he asked, Darren, this subordinate has rejected them. No. Leng Shiqi said, tell me what happened first. It's like this. Guan Feihong answered, some time ago the Wind Thunder Tower captured a demonic beast. It was said that this beast had committed heinous crimes in the East County and was chased all the way to the North County. In the end it fell into the hands of the Wind Thunder Tower. Thus, the Wind and Thunder Tower wanted to hold a demonic extermination assembly to kill this demonic beast in front of everyone to prove the might of the heavens. Leng Shiqi sneered. What did he mean by proving the might of the heavens? He just wanted to use this opportunity to improve his reputation. These spiritual cultivation sects cared about these things most. However, after listening to Guan Feihong's words, Leng Shiqi felt that the demonic beast was more likely to be Nine Leave. He had to go and take a look. He said, "Prepare some gifts and follow me to the Wind Thunder Tower." The Wind Thunder Tower was located in the east of the North County, which was very close to the East County. On this day, Leng Shiqi took Guan Feihong to the Wind Thunder Tower. Both of them were wearing the clothes of the Dark Thunder Guard, so they were soon recognized by the doorman at the door. Guan Feihong handed over the name card. The doorman immediately stared at them and looked up at Leng Shiqi. Then he shouted, "The supervisor of the North County of the Dark Thunder Guard, Darren Liu, is here." Soon, a gray-haired old man in a purple cloak came out with a warm smile. This man was the head of the Wind Thunder Tower, Hong Guangji. He was at the late stage of the Spirit Gang realm. Even so, Hong Guangji had to be polite to Leng Shiqi, who was at the middle stage of the Spirit Aperture realm. That was because of Leng Shiqi's identity. Although the Discipline Department was said to be a deterrent to the Spirit Cultivator sects, the Discipline Department was equivalent to a tiger blocking the road. If you couldn't beat it, you could go around it. The Dark Thunder Guard was equivalent to a poisonous snake hiding in the dark, staring at you all the time. Once you showed the slightest flaw, you would die without a burial place. Therefore, for these Spirit Cultivator sects, sometimes the Dark Thunder Guard was more threatening than the Discipline Department. "Darren Liu is here. It's an honor, an honor." Hong Guangji laughed. As the saying goes, don't hit a smiling person. Leng Shiqi also laughed and said, "Head Hong, it's an honor to meet you." "Aha, Darren Liu, please come in." "Please." Hong Guangji led Leng Shiqi and Guan Feihong into the Wind Thunder Tower. The buildings in the Wind Thunder Tower were mainly small pavilions, each of which was very unique. At this time, there were many people talking to each other in the pavilions. These were all people who came to participate in the demon slaughtering assembly. When they saw Leng Shiqi coming, they all looked at him. The topic of these people's conversation naturally turned to Leng Shiqi, the new supervisor of the North County. Of course, there were good and bad comments. Some envied him for reaching such a high position at such a young age, and some didn't think he could do well in this position. Leng Shiqi turned a deaf ear to those people's discussion. What he cared about most was who was going to be slaughtered in this so-called demon slaughtering assembly. He lowered his voice and asked, "Head Hong, to tell you the truth, I have been very curious about what this demon beast looks like. You also know that many people in the West Wilderness Prefecture have never seen a demon beast in their lives. Can you let me see it first?" This. Hong Guangji revealed a hesitant expression. Logically speaking, he naturally hoped to wait until everyone was here before revealing the true appearance of the demon beast. However, Leng Shiqi's status was not low. If he did not even agree to such a small request, it would be a bit disrespectful. "Of course, there's no problem. I'll bring Lord Liu over to take a look." Just as they were about to move, the doorman's shout came again. "The Grand Commissioner of the North County's Discipline Division, Lord Wang, has arrived. The people from the Discipline Division are here too?" Hearing this, Leng Shiqi was a little puzzled. The relationship between the Discipline Division and the Spirit Cultivator sect had never been good. In the hearts of the Spirit Cultivators, the Discipline Division was the lackey of the Imperial Court and was not liked. Moreover, the Discipline Division had to maintain a certain distance from the Spirit Cultivator sect. If they got close, it would not be good for either side. Not only was Leng Shiqi puzzled, even Hong Guangji was puzzled and revealed a surprised expression. Because he did not invite the Discipline Division at all. Now that the people from the Discipline Division had come uninvited, the Grand Commissioner had personally come. That was an existence on the same level as the Dark Thunder Guard supervisor. Hong Guangji's heart could not help but beat faster. Chapter 411. Leng Shiqi and Hong Guangji were both surprised by the sudden arrival of people from the Discipline Commission. However, since they were already here and their status wasn't low, Hong Guangji had no reason to not receive them. Hong Guangji looked at Leng Shiqi with a slightly troubled expression. "Lord Liu?" Leng Shiqi cupped his hands. "The head commissioner of the Discipline Commission has arrived. Sect Master Hong, please help yourself. Lord Liu, please forgive us." Hong Guangji called over a Spirit Aperture Realm Elder. Elder Qing accompanied Lord Liu. Then Hong Guangji went to receive the head commissioner of the Discipline Commission. Elder Qing said, "Lord Liu, this way please." Not long after, Leng Shiqi and the others arrived at a dark underground room. Leng Shiqi looked around and found that there were all kinds of formations and restrictions here. This should be where the beast was locked up. At this time, Elder Qing took out something that looked like a key and opened up a door in the layers of formations. He said, "Lord Lu, the beast is inside. However, this beast is abnormally fierce and has strange methods. Even with restrictions, it's still dangerous. It's best if Lord Lu doesn't get too close." Leng Shiqi nodded silently and walked through the door. Guan Feihong waited in place. As soon as he stepped in, he immediately sensed Nine Leave in the illusion world. So even though he didn't see it, he knew that it was Nine Leave that was locked up here. Leng Shiqi raised his head and saw hundreds of golden chains intertwined in the air to form a cage. Inside the cage, there was a demonic beast that was half the height of a human curled up. It was Nine Leave. Just as Leng Shiqi was wondering why Nine Leave was actually captured, Nine Leave's voice appeared in Leng Shiqi's mind. "Leng Shiqi, why are you here?" Leng Shiqi heard that Nine Leave's tone was very relaxed. It didn't seem like he was about to be publicly killed and become a tool for the Wind and Thunder Tower to gain reputation. Leng Shiqi couldn't help but recall the time when Nine Leave was being hunted down by the people of Extreme Fire Manor. Nine Leave had also appeared relaxed and content. He wasn't sure if Nine Leave had deliberately allowed himself to be caught. "Senior Nine Leave, how did you get captured by the Wind and Thunder Tower?" Leng Shiqi communicated with Nine Leave through the spiritual illusion realm. Nine Leave let out a disdainful snort. "If I don't get caught, I won't be able to escape the pursuit of a large number of masters in the East County. Moreover, the Wind Thunder Tower did not capture me. I came here on my own accord. Otherwise, how could that bastard Hong Guangji catch me?" Leng Shiqi thought about it and agreed. Although Nine Leave was a rank 4 demonic beast, if she wanted to escape, Hong Guangji really couldn't do anything to her. However, Leng Shiqi was even more confused. Since Nine Leave wanted to use the Wind and Thunder Tower to avoid being hunted down, he should have achieved his goal by now. Why was he still staying here? Leng Shiqi didn't believe that this restriction could really control Nine Leave. As if seeing through Leng Shiqi's thoughts, Nine Leave said, "Since you're here, it means that the Demon Extermination Conference of the Wind and Thunder Tower is starting today, right?" "That's right. Most of the people outside have arrived. It will probably start at noon. Senior Nine Leave, do you want me to think of a way to help you escape?" "There's no need. I don't care about this array formation. I'll just send a fake body out later. Let me ask you. With so many people here today, the Masters of the Wind and Thunder Tower should have gone out to welcome the distinguished guests, right?" Hearing this, Leng Shiqi's heart skipped a beat. He seemed to have guessed Nine Leave's intention. Nine Leave was probably eyeing the treasures hidden in the Wind and Thunder Tower again. However, it was indeed as Nine Leave said. As there were many distinguished guests with high status present today, the sect master and many elders of the Wind and Thunder Tower were also receiving the guests. Leng Shiqi replied, "Everything is as Senior expected." "Very good." Nine Leave said with satisfaction, "Since you're here, help me out later. You don't have to give me the resources you owe me." "Don't have to give?" Leng Shiqi was secretly shocked. He owed half of the resources to the Nine Leave Profound Yang sect. Nine Leave actually said he didn't want it. It could be imagined that what Nine Leave wanted must be an extremely precious heavenly treasure. However, Leng Shiqi still couldn't agree directly. He still had to ask clearly first, "Senior, can you tell me specifically what you need me to do? Originally, I planned to use the illusory god technique to fake my death and then get something. But that thing is also surrounded by array formations and restrictions, and there is also a spirit astral realm cultivator guarding it. According to my original plan, I wanted to end the battle quickly and take the treasure before the Masters of the Wind and Thunder Tower could react. Now that you're here, it's even simpler. You are now at the spirit aperture realm and proficient in illusion techniques. You should have a way to hypnotize the person next to you." Leng Shiqi glanced at Elder Qing. Since they came in, Elder Qing had been standing behind Leng Shiqi. This person's cultivation was similar to Leng Shiqi's, at the middle stage of the spirit aperture realm. Leng Shiqi still had some confidence. "Yes. Very good. Later you can hypnotize him directly. I'll leave an illusory body here to set up first. This way the chances of success will be higher." Leng Shiqi nodded silently. Then, a green ring with a ferocious appearance quietly appeared on his finger. It was the 7th level spiritual weapon, the God of Poison Ring. Immediately after, a majestic and pure mental strength surged out. Leng Shiqi turned around abruptly, and his eyes flashed with five-colored light. In Elder Qing's eyes, the scene of heaven and earth changed instantly. For heavenly deities looked down on all living beings. Elder Qing's eyes suddenly widened, and his gaze became unfocused. Taking advantage of this opportunity, 9 Leaves' purple light flowed and left an identical demon body in place. She went directly to Leng Shiqi's side. 9 Leaf glanced at Elder Qing and said in surprise, "This move of yours is quite impressive. The array formation outside can sense my aura. Put away my corporeal body and bring me out first." Then a green shadow rushed out from 9 Leaves' body and entered Leng Shiqi's illusion world. Leng Shiqi immediately put away 9 Leaves' body, and then he made the same expression as Elder Qing. After about half an incense's time, Elder Qing finally recovered. His face was pale and a layer of sweat seeped out of his forehead. He first looked at the cage in the air and was relieved when he found that the demon beast was still trapped inside. At this time, Leng Shiqi also woke up. He immediately said with a bit of shock, "Elder Qing, what happened just now? This demon beast is very strange. It can control people's souls. We might have fallen into its trap just now. Lord Lu, let's quickly leave this place." Elder Qing said with lingering fear. "Okay, let's go." Chapter 412. Leng Shiqi and Elder Qing walked out with lingering fear. When Guan Feihong saw this, he was slightly puzzled, but he did not ask anything and silently followed behind Leng Shiqi. When the three of them returned to the ground, Leng Shiqi said, "Elder Qing, I see that there are many guests today. You should go and entertain the other guests." This. Elder Qing hesitated for a moment. Leng Shiqi casually said, "It's fine, I'll just walk around." Elder Qing then cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for your understanding, Lord Lu. The demon slaughtering assembly will begin at noon. At that time, please come to the Wind Thunder platform to watch." "All right. I'll take my leave." After Elder Qing left, Leng Shiqi quietly opened his supercilious eyes and avoided all the spirit cultivators. He then released 9 Leaf from a secret place. The moment 9 Leaf came out, her eyes flashed with excitement. She said, "Leng Shiqi, when the time is right, it's best if you can help me delay Hong Guangji for a while. As long as you can delay him, I have a 100% chance of getting that item. When the time comes, you can have a share." Leng Shiqi had always been curious. What treasure did 9 Leaf have her eyes on? "Senior 9 Leaf, I wonder what the item you're talking about is?" 9 Leaf smiled mysteriously. "That item is called the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. Not only can it refine the power of wind and thunder, it also contains a trace of the power of destiny. In some ways it's not much inferior to the Heaven Demon Soul Crystal. It's an incredible treasure." Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. Leng Shiqi knew about this item, because this was the foundation of the Wind Thunder Tower, the sect's most precious treasure. 9 Leaf actually planned to dig out the roots of the Wind Thunder Tower. If Hong Guangji knew that the demonic beasts they had personally captured were actually targeting their sect's most precious treasure, who knew how he would feel? Leng Shiqi felt that he didn't need to worry too much about this matter. After all, even if he didn't come to the Wind Thunder Tower, 9 Leaf would have a way to get the Wind Thunder Divine Luck Stone. And since he came, he could be considered to have helped a little. He also earned a lot. Putting everything else aside, just the large amount of resources that he owed 9 Leaf was already a considerable amount of wealth. Therefore, he just had to pretend that he didn't know anything and secretly delay Hong Guangji for a while. This was a piece of cake for him. In the following time, Leng Shiqi and Guan Feihong walked around the Wind Thunder Tower for a while and experienced the uniqueness of the Wind Thunder Tower. At noon, they arrived at the venue of the monster extermination meet, the Wind Thunder platform. At this moment, the Wind Thunder arena was already packed with people. There were already many disciples of the Wind Thunder Tower. In addition to the guests, the entire Wind Thunder arena was a little crowded. On the east side of the Wind Thunder platform, a jade platform had been erected. There were about 10 people seated on it. These were all VIPs invited by the Wind Thunder Tower. None of them had simple statuses. Everyone in the Wind Thunder arena had a curious and expectant look on their faces. Especially for those spirit cultivators below the 4 realms of heaven, it was very novel to be able to see a high-level demonic beast, not to mention killing one in public. After Leng Shiqi arrived here, he was led to the jade platform by a disciple of the Wind Thunder Tower. He looked at them carefully, but he didn't recognize anyone. However, just because he didn't recognize these people didn't mean that he didn't know who they were. After he became the great supervisor, he read the information of all the famous people in the North County. There were a total of 13 people, most of whom were the sect leaders or the upper echelons of various spirit cultivator sects. There were also a few city lords of several nearby cities, and then there was the commissioner of the discipline department, Wang Tai. Wang Tai was the commissioner of the discipline department, who awed the North County. His cultivation at the 9th level of the spirit gang realm was the best. When he saw Leng Shiqi coming over, his eyes immediately locked on Leng Shiqi. Since Leng Shiqi became the supervisor half a year ago, Wang Tai often heard this name. Especially after Leng Shiqi destroyed the Shenyang sect, some people in the discipline department still had a lot of opinions, because this kind of thing should be the responsibility of the discipline department, to be more precise. According to common sense, after Leng Shiqi got the evidence that the Shenyang sect colluded with the Zhulu state, he should report it to Duan Chun, and Duan Chun should ask the discipline department to destroy the Shenyang sect. However, Leng Shiqi destroyed the Shenyang sect by himself. Such a huge contribution had been swallowed by him alone. Wang Tai thought that Leng Shiqi would definitely be suppressed by Duan Chun, but he didn't expect that in just a few months, Leng Shiqi would ascend to the position of the great supervisor again. Now Leng Shiqi's official position was the same as Wang Tai's, but the Dark Thunder Guard supervised the world, including the discipline department. So from this point of view, Leng Shiqi still had the power to suppress Wang Tai. Wang Tai, a master at the 9th level of gang spirit realm, was suppressed by Leng Shiqi, who was at the 5th level of spiritual aperture realm, which made him unhappy. However, Wang Tai didn't intend to target Leng Shiqi. He was not stupid. Since Leng Shiqi could be the great supervisor, he must have both background and ability. Besides, the discipline department and the Dark Thunder Guard had always minded their own business, so he didn't have to find fault with them. The most important thing was that he had more important things to do in the Wind and Thunder Tower. Leng Shiqi walked up to the jade platform and exchanged pleasantries with the group of big shots. Everyone had joyous expressions on their faces and they were all in harmony. Finally, Leng Shiqi sat beside Wang Tai. He was also very curious about why Wang Tai came uninvited. Wang Tai said with a smile, "Mr. Liu, you are promoted to the great supervisor at such a young age. You are really a young hero." "You flatter me, Mr. Wang," Leng Shiqi said modestly. However, Wang Tai immediately condensed his voice into a line and transmitted a message to Leng Shiqi. "Mr. Liu, I don't know if you are interested in one thing." Leng Shiqi didn't know how to condense his voice into a line, so he could only use his eyes to signal Wang Tai to tell him the details. Wang Tai then transmitted a message. "To tell you the truth, the reason why I came to the Wind and Thunder Tower is that the Wind and Thunder Tower has angered the public. The evil beast to be killed in this demon slaughtering conference has stolen a lot of resources from various spirit cultivation sects in the East County. As far as I know, although this evil beast is only a rank 4 evil beast, it has spiritual intelligence and super strength. Even an ordinary master of gang spirit realm can't defeat it." Later, several spirit cultivation sects joined hands to hunt down this evil beast, but it still escaped and came to the North County. The evil beast was seriously injured, and it happened to be caught by Hong Guangji and others who were passing by at that time. If Hong Guangji secretly killed the evil beast, it would be fine, but he wanted to use this evil beast to increase the reputation of the Wind and Thunder Tower and held such a demon slaughtering conference, which completely angered those sects in the East County. Now the forces in the East County had already known the news and were clamoring for the Wind and Thunder Tower to hand over the evil beast, but Hong Guangji didn't care at all. "I came here because I was afraid that those forces in the East County would make trouble. If there is really any trouble in this demon slaughtering conference, I hope Mr. Liu can stand out and say something." Hearing this, Leng Shiqi's eyes began to flicker. Chapter 413. Not long ago, when Leng Shiqi met Nine Leave only said a few words about what he had experienced, so Leng Shiqi did not know what had happened. Now that he heard King Tai's words, he knew the whole story. Leng Shiqi admired Nine Leave's ability to cause trouble. She actually went to the East County and provoked several spirit cultivator sects. She was even able to escape from the many experts who were chasing her. If she had not deliberately been caught by Hong Guangji, she would not have been caught by anyone. When these things happened, Leng Shiqi was either far away in Zhulu country or in closed-door cultivation, so he did not know that Nine Leave had caused so much trouble. Secondly, Leng Shiqi felt that Hong Guangji was a little confused. Nine Leave had stirred up trouble in the East County. Not only had those forces lost a lot of resources, they had also lost a lot of disciples. In the end, Wind and Thunder Tower had taken advantage of them. Just as King Tai had said, Hong Guangji should not have held this demon-slaughtering assembly. It would have been better if he had secretly handed 9 leave to those sects in exchange for some resources. Wind and Thunder Tower had invited spirit cultivators to participate in the demon-slaughtering assembly to increase their reputation. But if the forces of the East County came to cause trouble, not only would they not be able to increase their reputation, they would also lose face if they did not handle it well. As for King Tai's request, if it was in the past, Leng Shiqi would definitely not agree, because this would involve him in the conflict between the spirit cultivator sections. The discipline division was in charge of these things, so it was fine if they interfered, but the Dark Thunder Guards did not want to blindly interfere. However, Leng Shiqi thought that 9 Leave had asked him to help stall Hong Guangji, so his thoughts began to become active. King Tai saw that Leng Shiqi had fallen into hesitation. He knew that he could not move Leng Shiqi with his mouth, so he continued to transmit his voice. Lord Lu, don't worry, I will definitely not let Leng Shiqi get into trouble. Moreover, whether it is the Discipline Commission or the Hidden Thunder Guards, they all hope that the North County will be peaceful. They don't want to do anything, just not make any mistakes. If Lord Lu can help me settle this matter smoothly today, I will owe Lord Lu a favor. Hearing this, Leng Shiqi was also tempted. The favor of the Commissioner of Discipline Department, a master at the 9th level of Gang Spirit Realm, was too valuable. If this favor was used well, it could play a crucial role. Leng Shiqi nodded gently. Seeing this, Wang Taiyang smiled. Although Leng Shiqi's cultivation was not very high, his status was not low. He definitely had a say here. The words of the Discipline Commission and the Dark Thunder Guards, who were in charge of the North County at the same time, had a great deterrent effect. King Tai was even more confident about today's mission. Just as they were secretly discussing a deal, Hong Guangji stood up, and the others all tacitly stopped talking. The spectators on the Wind Thunder platform quieted down as well. They knew that the Demon Slaughter Conference was about to begin. Hong Guangji's old face was flushed at this time. His mouth moved slightly and his voice became clear and came into everyone's ears. Following that, he began to speak slowly like a leader. From time to time, he would list out some of 9 Leaves' crimes. He also described how hard they had worked and how great of a price they had paid to capture 9 Leave. In short, he described how 9 Leave had committed the most heinous crimes, and how they were righteous and awe-inspiring to get rid of evil for the people. Half an hour had passed since Hong Guangji opened his mouth. Leng Shiqi even planned to divide part of his consciousness to deduce the spiritual skills. At this moment, a group of people rushed in aggressively. Behind this group of people, there were several disciples of the Wind Thunder Tower shouting, "Master, we don't know where they came from. We can't stop them." There were 4 people standing at the front of the group of people who broke in, and they were all in the Gang Spirit Realm. Behind them, there were 20 or 30 people, all of whom were spirit cultivators in the 4 realms of celestial being. These people were all gloomy. Obviously, they did not come with good intentions. The one-armed man among the 4 Gang Spirit Realm cultivators sneered, "That demonic beast was clearly being chased by us, but you, Hong Guangji, secretly took it away. You even held a demonic beast slaughtering assembly. How ridiculous." "That's right. When we were chasing the demonic beast, you said that you had never seen it. Now I want to hear your explanation," another one-eyed man said bitterly. Seeing these 2 people, everyone on the Wind Thunder platform suddenly burst into an uproar. The one-armed man is the leader of the Heavenly Destruction Alliance, Mangon. He is an expert in the late stage of the Gang Spirit Realm. Yes, the one-eyed man beside him is the deputy leader of the Heavenly Destruction Alliance, Zheng Shen. There are also people from the Refining Heart Palace and the Drunk Dream Valley. What are they doing in the Wind Thunder Tower? Didn't you hear what they said? The demonic beast that the Wind Thunder Tower wants to behead in public is the demonic beast that caused a bloody storm in the East County not long ago. It is said that these sects lost a lot of disciples while chasing the demonic beast. The demonic beast is the shame of their lives. If they can kill the demonic beast, they can save some face. However, the demonic beast was hidden by the Wind Thunder Tower. Today they are here to settle accounts with Hong Guangji. Now there is a good show to watch. This trip is not in vain. Seeing the arrival of Mangon, Zheng Shen and others, Wang Tai became serious. He had thought that even if people from the East County came, there would not be so many masters. But now, there were 4 Gang Spirit Realm cultivators. This was not easy to solve. Looking at these people who came to make trouble, Leng Shiqi also had the mentality of watching a good show. As for Hong Guangji, his face was the worst. He was being questioned in front of so many people. Where was his dignity? Hong Guangji also expected that people from the East County might come, so he forced a smile and said, "Are you also here to attend the demonic beast slaughtering assembly? Please take a seat." Man Gan immediately sneered, "What the hell is the demonic beast slaughtering assembly? You don't deserve it. Even if there is going to be a demonic beast slaughtering assembly, it should be held by us, not by a villain like you who secretly seeks profits." The smile on Hong Guangji's face had disappeared. What Man Gan said was completely merciless. He said in a low voice, "Are you sure you want to go against the Wind Thunder Tower? You have chased the demonic beast for so long without success. In the end it was caught by the Wind Thunder Tower. I have done what you can't do. Naturally, I am qualified to hold the demonic beast slaughtering assembly. Bah! We have seriously injured the demonic beast. You just took advantage of the situation." Zheng Shun shouted angrily, "Today you'd better hand over the demonic beast, otherwise." Speaking of this, the four gang spirit realm cultivators emitted horrible spiritual pressure at the same time. The air in the entire Wind Thunder platform suddenly seemed to be emptied in an instant, making it difficult for people to breathe. At this moment Wang Tai stood out. Chapter 4:14. King Tai was a conservative person. In his opinion, as long as the North region was stable, everything would be fine. Therefore he came here to be a peacemaker. At this moment, King Tai saw that the two sides were like fire and water and could fight at any time. If they really fought, no matter who won, the East region and North region spirit cultivator sects would be in chaos. This wasn't what the Discipline Division Grand Commissioner wanted to see. King Tai stepped and instantly arrived between the two sides. Zheng Shun and the other three spirit pressure didn't seem to exist on King Tai's body. He said with a smile, "Sect leader Hong, alliance leader Man, we can talk about anything. There's no need to use weapons and hurt the harmony." Man Tiangan and the others naturally recognized King Tai. At first, their attention was on Hong Guangji, so they didn't notice King Tai was here. Since King Tai was here, Man Tiangan retracted his spirit pressure and cupped his fists. "Lord Wang is also here. I'm sure Lord Wang knows the whole story. This isn't a big deal. As long as Hong Guangji hands over the demon beast, we'll leave." "That's right. This is already the biggest concession we can make," Zheng Xin added. King Tai didn't say anything. Instead he looked at Hong Guangji and gave him a meaningful look. Hong Guangji immediately understood King Tai's meaning. King Tai wanted stability and Hong Guangji to hand over the demon beast. Hong Guangji definitely wasn't willing, but King Tai was the North region's Grand Commissioner. He didn't dare to provoke him. However, Hong Guangji also guessed that the Heavenly Cripple Union might come to find trouble with him. He wasn't unprepared. He transmitted his voice to King Tai. "Lord Wang, don't worry. I'll take care of this. I won't let the East region and North region become chaotic." "That better be the case. Otherwise I won't clean up your mess." King Tai heard that Hong Guangji was prepared, so he retreated to the side. Hong Guangji knew that if he didn't handle today's matter well, King Tai wouldn't help him and would even hit him when he was down. "Alliance leader Man, since you're all here, how about this? The Demon Slaughter Assembly will continue as usual, but Alliance leader Man will personally kill the demon beast. How about it?" As soon as these words came out, Man Tiangang began to ponder. Leng Shiqi felt that this method seemed to be a good method for both sides to take a step back, but in the end, it still depended on how determined the people of the Heavenly Stem were. Man Tiangan, Zheng Shen, and the others had a simple discussion and said, "This method is not suitable. I have a better idea." "Alliance Master Man, please," Hong Guangji said. "We spirit cultivator naturally respect strength. Today I will set up a bet with this matter. Each of us will send out 3 people to fight, and the one who wins the most will be the winner." If sect leader Hong wins, we will leave without a second word. However, if we win, Humph, please bring out the demon beast, sect leader Hong. Hong Guangji's expression darkened. Including him, there were only 2 gang spirit realm experts in the Wind and Thunder Tower. The other one was still guarding the treasure pavilion of the sect. However, there were 4 masters of gang spirit realm on the other side. This was clearly an unequal gambling fight. How could he agree? But looking at the expressions of the people of the Heavenly Stem, it seemed that if he did not agree they would really fight. At this time Hong Guangji was in a dilemma. He really underestimated the spirit cultivator forces in the East County's obsession with the demon beast. At the end of the day, that demonic beast was only a rank 4 demonic beast. The reason why Hong Guangji held the demonic slaughtering assembly was firstly because this demonic beast had indeed caused a huge commotion. Secondly, many people had never seen a real demonic beast before, so they were willing to give face and participate in the demonic slaughtering assembly. But he did not expect that Nine Leave was about to swallow up all the resources of the Heavenly Destruction Alliance and several other forces. Not only that, in the process of chasing Nine Leave, they lost a large number of disciples. How could they let go of such hatred easily? They had to kill Rinjioli in order to vent the hatred in their hearts. Only then would they be able to save some face. At this point Hong Guangji had an idea. There were many masters of gang spirit realm present. As long as he could draw one or two of them to his side, he might be able to win the bet. So Hong Guangji looked at those people on the Jade platform. Most of them were in the gang spirit realm. But when they saw Hong Guangji looking at them, they all avoided eye contact and some of them even closed their eyes to rest. They were all people in high positions, so they naturally knew that this was the grudge between the Wind and Thunder Tower and the forces in the East County. They did not want to get involved. Only one person did not avoid Hong Guangji, that was Leng Shiqi. Unfortunately, Hong Guangji subconsciously eliminated Leng Shiqi from the list. In his opinion, Leng Shiqi could sit in the position of the supervisor of the North County because of his ability and background, not strength. At this moment he just needed a strong person. And the reason why Leng Shiqi kept looking at Hong Guangji was not that he really wanted to help him in the bet. Moreover, Leng Shiqi knew himself well. He could indeed threaten the masters of Gang Spirit Realm when he broke out with all his strength. But it was limited to the early stage of Gang Spirit Realm. Among the 4 masters of Gang Spirit Realm, the weakest one was at the middle stage of Gang Spirit Realm. So Leng Shiqi did not want to go up and look for trouble. He stared at Hong Guangji because he was waiting for something. Calculating the time, Nine Leave should have started to take action. No matter whether she succeeded or not, Hong Guangji, the head of the Wind and Thunder Tower, would definitely receive the message from the first elder who guarded the Heavenly Luck Stone of Wind and Thunder. At that time Hong Guangji would definitely react, and Leng Shiqi would have to do something. At this point the entire Wind and Thunder platform fell into a dead silence. The people of Gang Spirit were waiting for Hong Guangji's reply. The people on the Jade platform were either looking around or resting with their eyes closed, while the people on the Wind and Thunder platform were waiting for a good show. Hong Guangji's face had become livid. The reason why he invited those big shots was that he intended to stand up for him. Now no one was willing to stand up for him. Just as Hong Guangji was thinking about what to do, suddenly, his eyes widened and his face changed greatly. Just now he received a message from the first elder, Ji Dong, that someone broke into their treasure pavilion and intended to steal the Heavenly Luck Stone of Wind and Thunder. That was the most precious treasure of the Wind and Thunder Tower, and also the best treasure for practicing the Wind and Thunder formula. It was the foundation of the Wind and Thunder Tower. He had to go there. Hong Guangji hurriedly cupped his hands and said, "Everyone, I'm sorry. Something urgent has happened in our sect. Please excuse me for a moment." Gang Spirit was the first to disagree. He said harshly, "What? Do you want to refuse? Then don't blame us for being rude." At this time Hong Guangji did not want to entangle with them about the evil beast, so he said directly, "After I deal with the matter, I'll give you the evil beast." Gang Spirit was stunned at first. Hong Guangji bowed his head. What happened in the Wind and Thunder Tower? Just when Hong Guangji was about to leave with his disciples, Leng Shiqi spoke. "You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure."